So we have 3 minutes before the meeting starts.
We all look so serious.
Except Danny.
Hey, Dave. Dave?
Dee, someone's calling you.
Yes.
I was wondering, seeing that Jonathan can't be on video, can
We're trying to get him on video. We're trying to get him on video right now.
Oh, okay.
John, I've got to have Dean switch you over again, so hang in there.
Peter, are we gonna skip the Pledge of Allegiance on this one? Seeing how
No.
we're all, no?
Not-
We're,
not-
I don't have a flag in here. But
There you go.
there it is.
There are certain traditions that must be accomplished.
What's that?
I do have a flag out in the barn I could go get.
Hold on, I'm trying to take care of Gifford. Just 1 second.
I've got one on my biker vest. It's over there on the chair.
Yes, yeah, I'll stay here. John Gifford Webb.
Just remember, everybody, when we stand up, all of a sudden the cameras are looking at our belly buttons. So tip the thing up.
Does it mean I have to put, does it mean I have to put pants on?
I was gonna say, I'm gonna have to go put pants on.
Okay, John Gifford should be in as a panelist. However, I'm not seeing a option for him to use.
Yeah, I'm not seeing him either. John, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Yeah, it looks like you're going to be voice only, my friend.
Okay, Dean, stop trying to solve that problem. It's behind us. We're just going with audio with John.
Only mode.
Well, that was interesting. Okay, you guys ready to start the meeting?
Yep.
Dee, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 25th, 2020 edition of the Plaistow Zoning Board of Adjustment. We appreciate your viewing and participation tonight. This is novel for us, and this is the first time we have met remotely. Actually, this is the first time we've met at all since February. So before we start, I have a statement I need to read. As the chair of the Plaistow ZBA, due to the COVID-19/coronavirus crisis, and in accordance with Governor Sununu's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically, and these reasons shall be reflected in the minutes. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, we are confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone. Members of the public wishing to attend this meeting electronically may call the following conference call number: 1-562-247-8422. Access code 900-532-276. B, additional public access by video or other electronic means will be available as follows. We are utilizing the GoToWebinar platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during the meeting through the GoToWebinar platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting by clicking on the following webinar address: http://plaistowaccess.com/zb-remote. C, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. Legal notice was sent to all the abutters for each application and was published in the Eagle Tribune newspaper with information on how to access the meeting. D, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting that a member of the public wishes to speak or be recognized during any public comment or public hearing. The GoToWebinar platform has both a raise your hand and a Q&A feature that allows attendees to alert that they have a question. Please note that all questions submitted through the Q&A feature must contain your address and will be read into the record. E, other access to the meeting. The meeting is also being broadcast on PlaistowAccess Cable Channel 17 and will be live streamed on the town website at www.plaistow.com. In the event that the public is unable to access the meeting via conference call or GoToWebinar, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled at a later time. Those who would like to submit questions in advance may email them to dvoss@plaistow.com. Although that time has basically gone by, it's not in advance anymore. Please note that all questions submitted by email must contain the name and address of the sender, not merely the email address. Please note that any questions, comments submitted via email will be read into the record. Okay. Dee, would you please call the roll?
As I call the roll, can you indicate whether or not you are participating remotely and if there's anybody else in the room with you? Peter Below?
I am here. I'm remote, and there's no one else in the room with me.
Dan Lloyd?
I'm also here, remote, alone.
John Blinn?
I'm here, I'm remote, and I'm alone.
John Gifford?
I am here and alone.
And remote?
Yes, remote.
Jerry Ingham?
I am here, I am remote, and I'm alone.
Ethan Conley?
I'm here, remote and alone.
And I know we also have our candidate as alternate, Mr. Unger, Jim Unger, and you are?
I am here, I am remote, and I am alone.
Well, we are definitely a lonely group of people, aren't we, tonight? So, okay, next thing we need to do is do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd appreciate people standing to do that. Dean, if you can put up a picture of the flag, so that'd be appreciated. We ready? Ethan? I pledge allegiance
To the
flag
flag
of the United States of America and to the
to
republic
the
for which
republic
it stands,
And one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two, as I say in Boy Scouts. Thank you very much. Before we begin, another comment mainly to the public out there who's watching. I know we have some folks out there viewing tonight. So the way the hearings will go is the applicants are allowed to state their case. Members of the zoning board will have questions and comments along the way for clarification. At the end of the applicant's presentation, I will make a call for anyone speaking in favor. At that point, if you're speaking in favor of the application, please indicate, raise your hand or hit the Q&A, ask a question. Following people speaking in favor, I will make a call for people speaking against. And again, people who either are neutral or speaking against will have an opportunity to ask their question. Please ask your questions to myself, the chair, and I'll ask the applicant. We don't want to get into a back and forth between an applicant and a member of the public. Following, concluding all of those questions and answers, if there are any, the zoning board will call the case to a close. We will go into deliberation. We will discuss it amongst ourselves. And yes, you can all hear it, but you can't offer any more inputs, and the applicant can't offer any more inputs. And we'll take a vote on whether to grant or deny whatever they're asking for. Okay? I hear a resounding okay from the Plaistow universe.
Okay.
Okay. I think the first thing I'd like to do is start the process moving to get Jim Unger appointed as an alternate member. Would someone make a motion out there to do such?
Make a motion to grant Jim Unger access.
Well, it's to ask to send a letter to the selectmen to ask them to make him an alternate.
Recommend.
Yeah, to recommend. I'll second that motion. Any discussion? Okay, let's do the vote.
Peter Beal,
Yes.
Dan Lloyd,
Yes.
John Glenn,
Yes.
Jonathan Gifford,
Yes.
Gary Ingham.
Yes.
Okay,
Vote was 5-0-0.
yes. Actually, we shouldn't have had Ethan vote on this one.
Ethan did not.
Oh, I thought I heard you call him. Sorry.
No.
Okay, next on our agenda is meeting minutes from way back in February 27th. Has everybody had a chance to look at those?
Yes.
Okay, then I guess we're ready to vote on that.
I would like a motion, please, sir.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the February 27, 2020 meeting.
I'll second that motion.
You're not a voting member tonight yet, Ethan, so you
Uh,
can't.
Okay, until,
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Okay, you ready to vote?
Yep,
Dan Lloyd,
Yes.
John Glenn,
Yes.
Jonathan Gifford,
Yes.
Gary Ingham,
Yes.
Peter Beal.
yes,
Thank you. Your vote was 5-0-0.
okay. So why don't you call the first case we're going to be hearing tonight?
It's my understanding that we're going to hear the 4th Street rear case first because Mr. Gifford needs to leave early.
Actually, we're hearing that case first for several reasons. To be perfectly honest to everyone, this is meeting remotely like this is pretty new to this board. We have one applicant asking for one variance, one applicant asking for 2, and one applicant asking for 7. And I'm electing to go with what I consider to be the simplest one, only going for one variance first as well. Okay, so D, let's open this hearing. Please read the case.
Case number 20-13, a request from Ethan Conley for a variance from Article 5, Section 220-32FC1B to permit a single-family dwelling to be built on a lot without frontage on a town road. The property is known as 4th Street Rear, tax map 48.40 in the LDR district. The applicant is the property owner of record. For a variance from Article 5, Section
Why are they doing this first?
Okay. So, Mr. Connolly, I see that you're on screen. Could you please give us an idea of what you're trying to do?
Excuse me, could I just ask Dean to turn on Charlie Zilch on the attendees list as well? As he is the consultant working with the applicant.
I'm sorry, what?
I just asked Dean if he could make Charlie Zilch a presenter for now.
Keep that going, keep it going.
He's coming on shortly. Charlie Zilch is now the presenter.
I just asked Dean if he could make Charlie Zilch a presenter for now. Charlie Zilch, can you hear us?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you turn your webcam on for now?
Webcam. People webcam. Can you turn it on?
Ah, there we go.
There he is.
Just ask him to
Good evening.
turn it.
Evening.
I can hear you fine.
Can you turn your webcam on for now?
Okay, can everybody hear?
Yes.
Basically, but hold on one second, Charlie.
Sure.
Dean, do you hear me? I'm hearing, in the background, I'm hearing the time-shifted audio, probably from your live streaming or something. Better. Thank you.
Not my dog.
Say, was that you, Charlie?
I stopped doing these at home because of my cat and my crazy neighbors, so I stay at the office now.
Okay. So what's the proposal, Charlie? Mr. Zilch?
Getting a message that they're looking for screen control from me here.
Oh,
That's me.
Do you have that now?
Can you give it up?
I did.
Okay.
Okay. Am I ready to begin?
Gia, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I just can't get the screen to change. But
Well,
go ahead.
then you're not ready.
Go ahead. You can start. I'll get to it.
All right, great. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's nice to see everyone again. Charlie Zilch from SEC and Associates on behalf of Ethan Conley for his request for variance for his landlocked property located behind his existing house lot located at 43 Forest Street. Does everybody have a copy of the two-sheet plan?
Yes.
Okay, I want to just stay on page 1 for a minute here. I'll just kind of give a overview and then we can go into a little bit more detail if that's okay.
Okay, we're also going to need that on screen.
Hold on, let me see.
So let me know when you're ready.
Mr. Zilch, I'm waiting for Dee to be able to bring it up on screen.
Sure.
Which did you want me to start with?
Probably the plan sheet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can
just
everybody
sheet.
see that pictometry while I'm got it up there?
Yes.
Yes.
That's not it. There it goes.
That's the plan.
I'm all set.
Go ahead, Mr. Zoll.
Yeah, so the house lot, or Ethan's house lot, is identified as tax map 48, lot 39. And the abutting landlocked parcel behind it is identified as tax map 48, lot 40. So Ethan's house lot is 4.76 acres with 55 feet of frontage on Forest Street. Situated at the rear of the lot, about 550 feet back from Forest Street, is Ethan's home, garage, and a couple of outbuildings. The dwelling itself is served by an individual on-site septic system, as well as a private water supply. Access to the dwelling is via a private driveway from Forest Street back to the house area. The parcel is basically a long-standing existing lot of record. It's been around for quite some time. So the subject property of the landlocked parcel abutting the house at the rear, hopefully everybody can see that. It's 12.27 acre size. And this is a parcel that was residual land left over from the subdivision that created the Tracy Lane development in 1995. So the lot abuts the recently subdivided Hoyt Farms development on the east. It also abuts Brighton Drive Inc. property currently being subdivided on the south, and then land of Jeff DeLucia at the end of Woodland Drive on the west. So is everybody kind of familiar with where we are here? Okay.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so the subject lot, it's located entirely within the LDR zone. It's partially within a flood zone, and it is not within an aquifer protection or shoreline protection district or zone. The lot itself is undeveloped. Currently, it's a mix of fields and woodland. The soils on that property range from excessively well-drained all the way to very poorly drained soils. There are wetlands. They're predominantly located on the west side of the property, with the majority of the upland area abutting the house lot and the Hoyt Farm Estates subdivision on the east side. In all, that lot, out of the 12 acres, of approximately 7 acres of contiguous buildable upland soils. So might want to direct your attention to sheet 2 at this point. Just let me know when you're ready.
Is it showing?
That's fine. So the proposal for the property is simply this: it's to consider obtaining the necessary approvals and permits to construct just one single-family residential dwelling on the lot. One of the necessary approvals is obtaining a variance to allow construction on a lot with absolutely no frontage. So in consideration of the proposal and through research, we found that the parcel, as originally purchased by Bill Bartlett in '97 from the Tracy Lane developer, Ernie Brown, and subsequently sold to Michael and Tiffany Cook, and then eventually to Ethan, has remained a standalone lot, meaning that the lot from its creation in 1995 has been assigned its own tax map and parcel, and has been standing as that since that time. So what kind of convolutes the matter a little bit here is that there's a note on the recorded Tracy Lane subdivision plan that stipulates that this lot was to be combined with Ethan's house lot, which obviously never happened. So as a result of moving forward with the approval process, it adds an additional step for consideration. In discussing the issue with the planning board director, John Cashel, it has been determined that any action taken by the Board of Adjustment in planning board will be to remove the stipulation, meaning that with the Board of Adjustment, the requested variance should be considering the lot as it exists as a standalone lot or a freestanding lot with no frontage, and what it could have been as a single lot attached to the house lot and being subdivided with no frontage. So should the board grant the variance, an application will be submitted to the planning board to obtain approval for the lot as well as deemed necessary. So there's processes here. There was a note on the subdivision plan that said it was supposed to be combined with the front lot. It never happened. It's been taxed and it's been sold repeatedly over the years as a standalone lot, but there is that little bit of a cloud. So we'll have to take care of that. If the board is to grant the variance, I just want to be absolutely clear that you understand that there was that action. It never happened. We need to clear that up post decision on this variance. So
you're recognizing it and saying that the next, should we grant this variance, your next step is the planning board?
I would think so. Our next step is to visit with the planning director, code enforcement officer, and have them make that determination. I don't know if they would deem that the action by the zoning board of adjustment completing that, or if we'd have to go back and remove that stipulation at a planning board hearing. So that remains to be seen. So in anticipation of the potential to build on the lot, Ethan and I have considered access, and one consideration was to connect from the end of Ethan's house lot driveway. But as you can see from that plan on that sheet 2, there's a considerable amount of slope. Haven't completely ruled it out, but it'd be a difficult build for a driveway. So the other option we had was through his neighbor Jeff Delucia's that I mentioned earlier, who's at the end of Woodland Drive. So in anticipation of the potential, Jeff's in the process of selling that house lot. We put a driveway easement plan on record that would allow access through Jeff's lot to our lot, and that's what we're showing on this plan. We're anticipating that should this be granted and we move forward with the process, the driveway will come in from Woodland through Jeff's existing lot, which is soon to be his former lot. There is some wetland impact with that driveway. We've met with the conservation initially to see if that was something they would be amenable to. I've also had some discussions with the Wetlands Bureau in regards to the amount of impact and for just the one house lot. And they thought that would be something that would be permittable as well. Obviously that depends on all the other little bits and nuances with wetland permitting these days with everything else that comes into it. But as far as the square footage and the impact, they didn't foresee that being an issue at all. So in all, basically my feeling is that the land supports the proposed use. It's just one house lot. All the other applicable siting, lot loading, setback requirements can be met. So the variance is simply for the lack of frontage. Any questions about the existing conditions or in what we're intending to do here?
Board members, anything?
No.
No.
Okay, carry on.
Okay, that's pretty much as far as my introduction to it. Would you like to go through criteria?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
let me just pause for a moment, Mr. Zilch, just to explain to the audience. Any requests for a variance, in order for the zoning board to vote in favor of it, must satisfy 5 criteria that are laid out by the New Hampshire legislature. And it's not passing 4 of them, it's not passing 3 of them. It's saying that all 5 criteria are met. Okay, and that is really the sole thing we look for in applications like this. So back to you, Mr. Zilch.
Okay, well, as Dee read into the minutes, this is a variance for frontage, and it is the minimum requirement is 200 feet. We do not have any frontage. And so what we're asking for is to allow for the construction, as I said, of one single family residential dwelling lot without that frontage. Whether the lot is considered freestanding or as a subdividable lot. The said lot will be accessed through a single driveway abutting either from an easement through Woodland or through Ethan's own property. So that's the request. So the 5 criteria, I'll just start with the first one. Excuse me. The proposed variance will not be contrary to the public interest because, and my response is, by granting the variance, it allow Mr. Conley the full productive use of the property as he intended it by acquisition as a separate freestanding parcel of land. Access to the lot will be provided by a shared driveway from Woodland Drive. All proposed construction of the home, the septic system, well and driveway will be current standards in regards to designing and permitting. For one single family dwelling on a lot that exceeds all other applicable sizing and siting requirements within an area that's surrounded by single family dwellings. All considered there will be no negative effect to the general health, welfare, or safety of the general public. Would you like to discuss each one, or would we just read through them?
I think let's just go through them.
Okay. Number 2, the spirit and intent of the ordinance is preserved because my response is that the intent of the ordinance as it relates to the frontage requirement is to ensure adequate separation of driveways and to establish density in keeping with the spirit of the overlying zone. In this case, the zone LDR requires the largest land area, 2.53 acres, to qualify for a building lot. This lot, as it stands, is 12.27 acres and contains approximately 7 acres of contiguous upland buildable area. Even if Ethan was to parcel off a small area, as you can see on that second sheet, to add to his existing house lot, about 0.85 acres, the lot would still be far greater in size than the zoning ordinance requires. In regards to the driveway, Ethan, through the cooperation of his neighbor or through his own lot, has secured an access that would not endanger, disrupt traffic flow, nor does it substantially in traffic volume. So in this particular case, the spirit and intent can be met, provided that the variance is granted. Number 3, there is substantial justice in granting the variance. And my response is the property is only limited by the lack of frontage. All other applicable lot sizing and siting requirements can easily be met. This property is similar to other properties where there is no frontage and access is through other parcels. And you can take a look at tax map 8 lot 21. I think I worked on that project back in the late 80s, early 90s. And that's a case in which the landlocked property has a driveway access through the town of Plaistow's property where there was wetland impacts as well. And that's at the end of Meadowview Drive. It's very similar to what this looks like as well. So back to Ethan, he's only asking for the construction of a single family residential dwelling on a generously sized property. So a denial of the variance would require finding a means of creating a town accepted roadway to serve the site. This alternative proposal, if even feasible, would result in considerably more site impact, cost, subsequent maintenance to the town, as well as more intensive development to offset the cost. So there is substantial justice in granting the variance, which would allow for a reasonable use of the property in keeping with the surrounding property values. The values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished because granting the variance would allow for plans to be submitted for consideration of one single family residential dwelling is allowed and supported in the zone. The proposed driveway to service the dwelling will be designed to meet the specifications for emergency access and will consider all environmental impacts as well. The proposed dwelling, septic system, and well will meet all siting and design requirements. Part of the approval process will require review by various state and local agencies, ensuring all considerations for safety, service, environmental, and site impact will be addressed. With this modest request for an additional dwelling within a residential neighborhood, it can be assured there will be no diminution of surrounding property values. And lastly, little enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship. And my response is that denial would result in unnecessary hardship if little enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance was applied, meaning requiring 200 feet of frontage where none exists for a lot that has a potential access that does not adversely affect the neighboring properties, nor does it diminish the spirit and intent of the ordinance, creates an unnecessary hardship. Although the objectives and the purpose of the ordinance can be demonstrated, the general requirements with respect to frontage requirements cannot, particularly when given the history of the lot as a separate tax lot and assessed as such. It is the intention of the owner to only construct one dwelling on the lot. Granting of the variance would only allow for the full productive use of the site as the surrounding property owners enjoy. That's
Okay. I have a couple questions that come to mind. How long is this driveway we're talking about?
from the end of Woodland Drive to about where the building area, you're looking at about 800 feet. If it was to come through Ethan's, it might be a little bit further, about 1,000 feet.
Okay.
We are also hopeful there's you might see the driveway where it passes through a little pocketed area. I'm not sure if that would meet all the setbacks for a house, but Ethan would like to put it, so that would put it even closer to Woodland by about another 150 feet. But we're just not exactly sure. We haven't had a final wetland mapping done.
Okay.
But if it's possible to move the house closer, we will.
Okay. Does this driveway go across the Maritimes and Northeast pipeline?
It will cross that, correct.
Are there, now I know that pipeline is buried 6 feet down.
Correct.
Are there any, I mean, clearly I'm on Sweet Hill Road and I can see where the pipeline crosses Sweet Hill Road right next to my property. So, but Sweet Hill was here first. I guess I'm asking are there any issues with constructing over that pipeline presently?
Not that I'm aware of. I've had experience in the past with crossing pipeline with driveway project in Exeter, and there was absolutely no restriction on it.
Okay. Will you have to reach out to them for their permission?
Yeah, I would imagine it's similar to any sort of easement holder. with such as Public Service or Eversource, there's always some sort of application to put in with them.
Okay,
That would be part of the permitting process.
okay, very good. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
As far as utilities, would they be buried or pole mount?
I would imagine you would probably want to bury these, Ethan. It's a little bit of a run.
Okay.
Correct.
Ethan, is that a pond on that property?
Yeah, yes.
And how close will the house be to the pond?
I think we've got to, Charlie, you can answer that better, but I think it's got to be set back 100-ish feet.
Yeah, the
Any
septic
well-
will have to be 100 feet and the house will have to be 75. It's considered very poorly drained. It's ponded.
Okay. All right.
There's a
Thank
mix of poorly drained and very poorly drained all along this complex. In the middle of it, obviously very poorly drained, and along the edges, a lot of those areas are poorly drained. So there's going to be some overlapping setbacks between, you have a 50-foot poorly and a 75 very poorly for drain for dwellings. And then it's 100 from either or for the septic. So we'd have to maintain all those setbacks.
And the driveway is going to go over a wet area, a wetland area, or not?
Yes, yep, there would be a wetland impact associated with it. We estimated somewhere between 6,000 to 7,000 square feet of wetland impact, and that's what I had spoken with the Conservation Commission about, as well as the Wetlands Bureau. And not only does that require permission from the Conservation Commission and a permit from the Wetlands Bureau, but it would require a conditional use permit through the Planning Board.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Anything else, folks?
No, I'm all set.
Yep, I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay, with that, I'm going to
I'm
do we
sorry.
have anybody speaking in favor of this?
I have a generic question and I have a, I have a generic question for starters. Hold on, I'm having trouble opening them here. Hold on. You ready for the generic question?
Yep.
This is from Lisa Lambert of 5 Tracy Lane. Mr. Connolly, do you have any intention to subdivide the land further? Is there any intention to have more than one home built on this parcel?
We didn't hear that, Mr. Conley.
Sorry, I was on mute. No.
And the other one is an opposition. It's not a generic question. You haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, is there anybody else speaking either in favor or with the generic question? I am not seeing anybody. So in that case, we will go to speaking against. Dee?
Question is from Eric Bell, and I believe he's on Tracy Lane as well, 4 Tracy Lane, I'm sorry. And his question is, he'd like the chance to speak, so I'm going to unmute his microphone.
Okay.
Mr. Bell, your microphone has been unmuted. You may ask your question.
I'll first test that you can hear me.
Yeah.
Somebody. Okay, good. First off, board and Mr. Conley, I appreciate being heard. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I have the property on that map that you can see that is labeled 38-139 at the top of the subject property.
Yes.
And you see that there's a, I border Mr. Conley's property properly and then that property as well. He and I have spoken before. He wanted to purchase a part of my property, and I said no at that time, respectfully, that I didn't want to. I've been here since 2004. I moved in with the idea and the notion and the understanding that there was never going to be building on any of the landlocked area that I and everyone around us basically is subject to. And so my first objection is just simply that it is a landlocked parcel that's almost half wetlands. And that alone, I don't think keeps up with the spirit and intent of what the ordinance was originally. Otherwise, Brown, who built Tracy Lane and originally owned that, would have built on it. Now, that's just my feeling, mind you, and I'm telling you what my objection is. Secondly, and this is hard to really quantify because we live in a fairly, not sparse, but not dense area. I admit that. That's why I live here. I moved to Tracy Lane because I love what Tracy Lane is, and I like the area of Tracy Lane, and so do my neighbors, Lisa Lambert, which you just heard a question from, and other neighbors. And adding more houses without the frontage is when I say the word against, it's just not what the idea is. It's that everyone should have access through the road. It keeps our density appropriate, and that's not with precision, I know. So I object to it in that it starts to build up density where really we're not supposed to have it. I certainly didn't want it. The third thing is the effect is in the eye of the beholder in some ways. And to me, it does impact it. I don't know if any of you have actually walked this before you ever heard of it. Since I lived here, I hate this area all the time. I know what that property looks like. Should something be built there, I'll obey whatever restrictions there are. I'll go around it. I'll do whatever I can. But I like the fact, and I bought into this because of this land. So I've got objections in different ways. I've got it because I think it's bad density. I got it because I don't think it really keeps with the original spirit and intent. And I think there is an inverse impact to my life, being a property owner with a sizable abutment, not as big as others, of course, but it's not something minor. So those are my objections. That's how I think it adversely impacts me. And may I say, some of my neighbors as well, although they're not representing their case here and I am. So again, I appreciate being heard on this matter. I don't know if there's any questions for me or what the next step is. So,
Does any board member have a question for this gentleman? Mr. Bell? No, we're good. We heard your concerns and do appreciate actually that you're one of the very few who spoke out.
I do see another hand
appreciate
raised, Mr. Belo.
Okay.
This is an Anastasia Sheehan. Anastasia, your mic has been unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, great. So we
Excuse
live
me,
at,
could I have your street address?
yes, we live at 8 Hoyt Farm Road in the Hoyt Farm Estate.
Do you have a television on in back of you?
No, it was my cell phone. Sorry, this platform is a little different for us where we can see you, we're on the webinar, we're on our phones. We just weren't sure which was the correct way to connect. So we're connected in every way possible.
Yeah, we're just getting a little feedback.
This is a learning process. This is a learning process for all of us.
I'd like to start with acknowledging everything that the person that spoke before me had said. We also purchased this land and this lot 3 years ago with the knowledge that behind us was landlocked and wetlands and conservation land, and with the expectation that it was going to remain that way. And similar to what the gentleman before just mentioned, we purchased here for all those reasons, to maintain the integrity of the area and raise our families here. Built our house with the 200 feet of frontage along with our neighbors. So I want to also agree with the caller prior to me and say that everything that he said, I kind of second that. I have a question on the engineer's report. It was on page 3, section 3. It mentioned that if this provision is not passed, then it's going to my understanding, it said it's going to go to the town to attempt for a road and potential more development. Can you explain that or what that means exactly?
Mr. Zilch?
No, the alternative to the lack of frontage is you have to create frontage. And the only way you could create frontage is by creating a roadway. And as I said, to create a roadway to get to the property, whether it's through Ethan's or if it's the extension of Woodland Drive, however it happens, is a tremendous amount of wetland impact, site impact, and then you have the cost associated with it, not only for the developer, but for the town who ultimately would have to take over that roadway. And if you're going to build a roadway, you're going to have to get more than one lot. So then you're going to have to cut the lot up into more parcels in more houses. Ethan's just looking for the one house lot on the property. Work his way forward to actually getting a driveway through the end of Woodland. Just one house lot is all he's looking for.
I'd like to actually ask a question also, Mr. Zilch. Mrs. Sheehan had mentioned that this is conservation property.
I heard that it is not conservation property. It's privately owned property by Mr. Conley.
Okay. Could it be in current use right now? Could that be the confusion?
Ethan?
It is in current use, yes. Correct.
Okay. So would one of you folks, just for the audience, explain what current use means?
Current use is a tax classification for a parcel over 10 acres in the state of New Hampshire that's not developed. They basically tax it as a vacant piece of land. If there's a house on it, you have to take it out of current use.
And also my recollection is that if you build a house on it or develop it somehow, and quote unquote, take it out of current use, there's a one-time tax penalty that the owner pays.
That's correct.
Sadly, it goes to the state, not the town.
I think you're correct about that.
Okay. Just wanted to give that kind of explanation out there.
I got a question for you. Hypothetical, if it didn't pass and you were to try to get a town road in there with the wetlands being.
Mr. Lloyd, could I ask you to lean in a little closer to your microphone?
Sure.
Thank you.
With that land being wet, what would possibly be the amount of house lots if you had to go that route? Feasibly, like what could you fit on that parcel of land if you had to subdivide it, or if you could subdivide it?
You could probably get, probably the best thing for to do is an open space development, smaller lots. So minimum of 3, perhaps.
Okay.
Can I jump in here? This is Brian Sheehan, Anastasia's husband at 8 Hoyt Farm Road.
Sure.
So again, I object to this as well. Just looking at this, like when I actually built my house here on Hoyt Farm Road, I was 33-2. And actually the map that we're looking at and getting shown right now on the TV is actually not my land, is actually not my correct lot, because I actually had to have a lot line change done prior to closing on my house, because the house was put not 100% in the center of the lot like it was supposed to. So I had to have an actual lot adjustment done. And while doing that lot adjustment, I had to conform to the 200 feet of frontage. I would have loved to given up 30 feet of my lot to have a nice straight line down the side of my house, but I was not able to do that because the board says I have to have 200 feet of frontage in the LDR. So why is it any different than Ethan Conley wanting to get 200, he doesn't have 200 feet of frontage. I don't understand why we're even having a question of this right now, because it's in the LDR. He knew when he purchased the house 3 years ago, it was in the LDR, that they needed 200 feet, which is not there. I mean, again, I'm not going to lie to everyone here on the board. This looks like this whole thing stinks right now. I mean, I hate to say that, but it looks like it stinks. You have a board member who moved to Plaistow 2 years ago. Within a year, he became an alternate on the zoning board, and now he's asking to get variances through the LDR and to put a driveway through wetlands. I'm not sure that this is the right person we want on our zoning board. I mean, he's been on the board for 6 months.
Excuse me. I really am not interested in character assassination on here. I'm interested in talking about the variance
Okay,
request.
I just got a question. Is this not a conflict of interest then?
No, because he's not voting on this.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
Okay, but to your point is like, what is this all about? Frankly, when you did your lot line adjustment, you had the opportunity to apply to the ZBA for a variance to, you were saying shrink your frontage 30 feet, and we would have heard that. Does anybody in town, any landowner in town, apply to the building inspector for whatever they wish. Once they're turned down, they have the right to come to the ZBA and ask for that to be turned around, based on the 5 criteria that I mentioned earlier. I'm going way out here. If I wanted to put a dump in my property, a landfill, I could apply to do that. It goes against zoning in town. Mr. Dorman would turn me down. And if I were a total loon, I would go to the ZBA and ask for a variance to allow that to happen. Basically, any landowner can make those requests. There's nothing untoward about it. It happens every day. And tonight we're hearing 3 different landowners ask for a total of 10 different variances. So, okay. Do we have anybody else wishing to say anything or ask a question?
I do have another person looking to make a comment. Let me find him on the list.
Sure.
I have Scott Manarian. I'm not saying your name right. I apologize, but I'm going to unmute your mic. Oh, it's not letting me unmute your microphone. Can you possibly type it into the chat box and I can read it?
Dee, strangely enough, I see him twice on my system.
I do too, but I can't unmute the one. Sounds like he is unmuted though. Oh, now you're unmuted.
Scott, can you speak?
Scott, can you hear us? Can I ask you to maybe type it into the chat box because we're not having success with getting you unmuted. Scott, can you hear us? Let me type him an answer. Hold on. And in the meanwhile, while he's typing that, I have another question from Ms. Lambert at 5 Tracy Lane. Her question is, Mr. Connolly has Mr. Connolly obtained an easement for the driveway at 9 Woodland Drive already?
The answer is yes.
It looks like Mr. Mararian, sorry, I'm not saying it right, and I apologize, has gone offline.
I'm seeing that as well.
Can anybody hear me? This is
now
Ola
we
at
can.
10 Hope Farm.
Is this Scott? Hello?
Scott, we hear you. I'm wondering if he's hearing with the time delay somehow.
It's still
All right,
showing
can you
as
hear
off.
me now?
Is
Yes.
that Scott?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yes,
sorry.
what was your address, sir?
Sorry for the delay. We were having some difficulties here, but look, I just
Could I
have a
get
few
your address,
concerns.
please, sir?
Excuse me?
Could I get your address, please?
Can you hear me better now?
Could I get your address, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. 12 Point Farm Road.
Thank you.
We abut Ethan's property. He's right behind us here, and we also have a direct view down to that field. And look, we've been in the town since 2001. We built over on Evergreen Drive, and this is our second home in the town. We moved over here at the end of 2018. Substantial move to get into this development here, and one of the things that was most appealing to us was the property that surrounded it. And knowing that that land that Ethan owns is, you know, part of his larger property, you know, we can respect the fact that he'd like to expand upon it or do something to help him, whether that's from a financial standpoint or whatever, a betterment to his family. But I feel that the positioning of the house on that lot where it is a detriment to the development here, and will create a burden on us from a value standpoint. Now, I don't have anything from data showing that. I can just tell you that when you come up to this property here and you look out over the little meadow that's down below us, and you see what type of activity that occurs there from a nature perspective, from different animals traipsing through our properties. This is why we're in Plaistow. My wife and I both grew up in Arlington, Massachusetts, which has postage stamp lots. 5,000 square foot is lucky. And the reason why we came to this town was for zoning the way it's set up, to make sure that you have to have the proper frontage to have a home built on that property. And I don't begrudge anyone for trying to make their lives better, whether this is for profit or this is to put a home in for Ethan and his family. But I have to look out for the best interest of my family. And by having a house in that property, I feel that it takes away from the entire development that we all worked very hard to put our hard-earned dollars into. And also, you know, from the perspective of the reason we have these laws is to prevent something like this from happening. I'm hearing pipeline going through it, 6 feet under. I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm hearing that we have wetland issues. Like we have an 800-foot driveway going through, maybe 1,000 foot. To me, this is where we're putting a lot where it doesn't belong. And I think it's an impact to the 3 houses that are directly behind it. You heard Mr. Gifford on Tracy Lane and the residents from that perspective. We live in this town because we value the fact that we have good, reasonable laws that make it applicable for all people that live with it. I live with it over on Evergreen Drive. I had a 5-acre lot, and I could have probably split that thing up 6 ways to Sunday if I made the request and asked for it. But we never did, because the integrity of the town and the essence of this rule is to ensure that we have the land left at the right place at the right time. And this property itself has been standing there since 1997 undeveloped for a reason. So from that standpoint, that's all I have to say. I mean, I don't have anything to begrudge Mr. Conley. Ethan's a nice man. He's trying to do what's right for his family, but this is right for my family, my friends, my neighbors. We don't think that this is a good idea. I appreciate your time, and sorry for the confusion up front.
We're all learning. Thank you for putting up with the delay.
Thank you.
I have another raised hand.
Okay.
Nick and Rosanna Ciola, could you please state your address?
Yes, it's 10 Hoyt Farm Road.
Thank you. Go ahead with your question, please.
Well, it's more of a comment, and I'm sorry I don't have all the documents in front of me. This technology is very new to me, but I guess I have to piggyback or second what my neighbor next door said. I don't begrudge Ethan for trying to do something down that land. So I don't want to. I'm not. My intention is not to be a roadblock to that, but I do. Or my wife and I, we have some questions that I don't think can be. At this point, I understand there's a lot of approvals that'll have to happen, but we have to at least raise our hand and voice our concern with the negative impact of having a home. I mean, it is directly behind my house from what I can see from the plans that were available there. So I second or third or fourth, depending how many people have I'm just echoing what they've already said. There is a negative impact to our property. If you look at it from I don't know what the noise would be like coming up that hill, but visually, I mean, it is sitting literally at the bottom of my land. So it's a new backyard to be staring into, or a new roof to be looking on, or I don't know if the house faces our house. And obviously these things will be further explained, I would hope. But at this point, it needs to go on record that I am against it as I currently understand it. I don't want to, again, stop Ethan from trying to do something down there. It's his land. I understand that. But the low density residential, I've also been in this town. I used to be on Evergreen Drive. We've been in town for 7 or 8 years. And there are a lot of reasons to stay here. But the biggest one is the ability to not be grouped up on. And, obviously when we came up to Hoyt Farm up here, the view was a very huge percentage of why we purchased up here. I mean, very big. And it was explained to us, maybe it was misexplained to us that land was not developable because it was landlocked. And in this LDR, it couldn't be improved upon. So, and there's been discussion about that land down there in a couple different ways of what maybe Ethan was looking to do with it. And again, I'm not saying, trying to, I understand build a house if he's hoping to live in it. I don't want to be a roadblock at this point, but I at least need to voice my concern that I'm not completely comfortable with it. And if there's an opportunity to see further what he's planning to do, I would very much like to be a part of that, because I do think there's a negative impact on our property and then, I guess that would be property value, our use of enjoyment of our land that we've purchased up here. So, I don't know what the next step would be. I just guess I needed to go on record as an abutter to say I have serious concerns with the house being built right down there, when it's been clearly explained to us anyways that land could not be developed. And whereas it is directly behind mine, I think, I have to voice my concern for it.
Okay, good. Mr. Zilch, can you take a look at the drawing and give us an idea about an approximate, if nothing else, about how far this proposed dwelling would be from Mr. Scola's residence?
Sure. The right now where the house is proposed, and like I said, Ethan would, if he can, if it's possible, would like it move it even closer to Mr. DeLucia's lot, further away from the Hoyt Farm Road properties. But right now where we're proposing it, it is approximately, just put a scale to it. About 200 feet from the property line, which is that stone wall that separates. And if you look at the houses, I can give you an approximation how far it is from the back of the houses. So one of the closest houses to where we're proposing to be about 450 feet. Yes.
Charlie, could you give me those first numbers again, please?
Between the houses is 450 feet roughly.
And that's from where to where?
And from where the proposed house is right now, where we're proposing on this plan, it's about 200 feet from the back property, the Hoyt Farm property.
I'm sorry, the 450 feet was a dimension from where to where?
That'd be from looking at the house on tax lot 4833-3 on Hoyt Farm Road, which is the closest one.
Okay.
450. So pretty good buffer.
This is Nick Scholar again. I understand, the distance away sounds very reasonable. with the technology we have, is there a way to understand better what it would do? What it would look like from up here? Is that a way to say it? I mean, 400 feet away from, or 200 feet away from the wall is, however, it's a clear shot on the land, if that makes any sense. And I don't know if this would be the meeting that we may not be. So sorry, kids, but I could just maybe put on record that I'd like to see some further or have some further dial on what that would do to us up here. Again, the distances are one thing, straight line distances, but you know, it's also a straight line view, if that makes sense. So you know, foliage and things like that, I can completely appreciate that those could help with the view. I don't know to what extent, and maybe we could explore that further. Would there be there must be some technology to understand what the buffer in between could look like, not just the distance, but how it's going to impact. I mean, more to it than just the distance. It's in the site.
Yeah.
This sight line, you know, the noise, and I mean, quite honestly, we've been enjoying this property up here, watching animals through there, everything else, and it's very, very nice. I just and I'm not unlistened, considering, and I have to just, you know, stress that, because I'm not trying to get in the way of him doing something for his family. But I do think we do have a very reasonable concern with what that might be at the bottom of the hill. But I appreciate it, and again, I'll stay as engaged as I can. But just want to, I guess, get it on record there. I'd love to have more dialogue about it, or at least see what it could look like.
So Mr. Connolly, Mr. Zilch, if this proposal goes forward, could you guys commit to working with your neighbors to minimize sightline impacts?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we could propose to do, I know the Hoyt Farm Road subdivision, when I was in front of the board with that project, we kept the vegetated buffer intact around it. And I think Ethan also has the potential here to do something as well to match that. And that would give it a nice vegetated buffer between the two buildable areas.
Okay. Anything further from our attendees? Questions, comments?
I see no other raised hands. Let me check the questions real quick. I see no additional questions.
Okay. Board members, do you have any additional comments or questions on this? No, and nothing from, okay, and nothing from other citizens out there. So in that case, I will, Mr. Zilch, Mr. Connolly, do you have any other comments?
Oh, I just do want to add that from the gentleman who was speaking before, Nick Scola, as Charlie said, yeah, the distance from the proposed building area is about 450 feet. That will be the closest house. As you go to the Moranians behind, it's 700 feet. And then to Mr. Bell's house, it's almost 2,000 feet. So I absolutely understand their concerns. I have no problem. I think they know me as a neighbor. I keep my landscaping hopefully better than most. And I take pride in that. It'll be a beautiful home and beautifully landscaped. So I do appreciate their concerns, and I hear them loud and clear.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to call this case to a close.
Question for Ethan.
Oh, sure. Go on, John.
Ethan, I know there's some concern with the citizens about what's going to be done with the land. And I just want you to clarify, you're just putting in one house with minimal impact the way the land is now?
Yes, sir. Yep. I intend to keep, yeah.
And is this going to be a house that's going to be up for sale, or are you going to move in it, or?
My intent, we're going to build on it for ourselves.
So you're gonna make sure that the concerns of those neighbors are actually your concern also. Because you want that land's gonna be yours and you want everything to be nice.
Like I said, I take great pride in the property and it'll look even better than it does now.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
I'm checking once more. I'm checking once more. I don't see any additional.
Okay. All right. In that case, I am calling this this hearing to a close. Thanks for everybody's inputs. You can mute Mr. Zilch now. He'll have nothing to offer at this point. And we're going into deliberative session where only the board members can discuss this and go down our variance criteria. Before we go down to criteria, does anybody have any initial comments or things they want to put out to the rest of the board?
Do I have a motion?
Oh, sorry. Would somebody does somebody have the staff report in front of them?
Really, guys?
I move to grant the application for the variance of Article 5, 220-32 FC 1-B to allow the residential single-family dwelling to be built on the lot without frontage on town-owned road for the property known as Forest Street Rear, tax map 48, lot 40.
Thank you,
Do we have a
Mr.
second?
Gifford. I'm sorry, the second was Mr. Belo?
Sure. And again, for the sake of the audience understanding this, our motion is always to grant an application, and we either vote in favor of that or against it at the end. It doesn't mean there's a preponderance of evidence right now that we're all going to vote one way or another. Okay. So let's, any comments or questions before we get to the criteria?
I have a comment. I don't remember the gentleman's name, but I, as a member of the ZBA and a resident of Plaistow, New Hampshire, take offense to telling us that something's fishy going on here. Ethan may only be a member for a year, but that's because he stepped up as a citizen of this town and volunteered. I seriously doubt he joined this board so that he could have an in with this piece of property. Gentlemen, know that I take offense.
Okay, let's step away from that for now, okay? So any questions or comments on this proposal? John Blinn?
Yes.
Oh, are we voting? We haven't done
I'm sorry,
anything.
not John Blinn. I meant John Gifford. Do you have any comments or questions?
Oh,
No, just, are we still on open mic?
We
yes.
are.
Okay, my only understanding here, and that is that these people were handed information that gave them an assimilation that this was going to be landlocked land. It is landlocked, but there is always an opportunity to venture into this property, and it's always been available for whoever purchased it. So these people were, whoever that bought on that Hoyt Road were, I'm not insinuating anyone sold a bill of goods, but it was slightly misrepresented that this land is going to always be inaccessible.
Okay, good point.
I heard that from every member that made a complaint that they were, that it was conservation land or it was landlocked land, and there, I just feel that, maybe, so they've been sitting on this thinking that this land was never going to be accessed, but it's quite honestly, anybody could purchase this property and gain access by whatever means that, came across. And if they invested more monies, they'd put in a road and put in multiple units. So this, I think this has the least amount of impact, just saying.
Okay. Yeah, the other thing that I heard from several people was that they like hiking this land. And I guess I guess I'd like to point out that it really isn't their land to be hiking on. But
They can still hike on it though if they'd like.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that one.
Said they're welcome to still hike on it if they'd like.
I'm sorry.
no more input, Mr. Connolly.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's step down the 5 criteria. The proposed variance will not be contrary to the public interest. Well, public interest, there's dueling public interest here. One is to utilize the land. And another is not to have too much utilization of land, too dense in this LDR zone. You know, I'm looking at this as being not contrary to the public interest because we're maintaining a 12-acre lot, which is a relatively large lot in this town. It's over, that's a 500,000 square feet, roughly, which is yeah, I should know this. It's about 5 times the minimum LDR footprint. So I don't believe it's contrary to public interest. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
No. Right. Well, this is Jonathan Gifford. My only statement on that is, you know, when we've worked with similar situations or other situations, we're worried about water runoff. We're worried about drainage. We're worried about seepage from one piece of parcel to another. This has nothing to do with touching or abutting I mean, there's 200 feet from the closest margin of error. So I don't see where it's a physical attribute that it's going to do anything. It's more of an aesthetic attribute. And quite honestly, the aesthetic is going to not be a warehouse or a big building, a big box building. It's going to just be a little, whatever size house is on the property and aesthetically pleasing. I understand that these people are going to lose their view of an open area, but that area was never promised to be always open.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? No. Okay. Spirit and intent of the ordinance is preserved. Well, the spirit and intent is to keep relatively large separations between houses. That's why the LDR is 2.53 acres minimum. And this lot's over 12 1/4, you know, and even though it's being accessed, it would be accessed off of this relatively long driveway. I don't think it really goes to, you know, the reason we have an LDR zone and the separation. We're not hearing that the driveway is going to be close to someone's house. It is going across an existing gas pipeline, but a number of streets in this town do, and a number of driveways do. That really, I think, is not something for us to really worry about. Somebody else have anything on that? The silence is deafening. There's substantial justice in granting the variance. And by substantial justice, folks, that means any loss to the individual that's not outweighed by a gain to the general public is an injustice. You know, and frankly, you know, I'm not going to minimize some of the aesthetic concerns, but there's no runoff concerns. There's no proximity concerns, too close to abutters, too close to wetlands or in wetlands, as we had seen before. So I think there is substantial justice in granting this because, you know, losing the ability to utilize this land to do anything on is a huge loss, whereas the aesthetic gain to the general public is, frankly, I think, relatively low. You know, especially when we consider and I'm not saying they would do this, but even if we ruled against this, that doesn't mean that land couldn't be denuded of trees tomorrow and sold, just sold as bare earth. There are relatively bad things that could happen if someone had to maximize their gain from this property in that manner. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, to expound on what you just stated, again, John Gifford, because I'm not on video, but any developer could come along and pick this up from Ethan and put in a 3-building cul-de-sac down there, and justify it by putting in a road or an access route that's going to cost more monies. And I think this is the minimal impact for that parcel if we grant this.
Okay, good point. The values of surrounding properties will not be diminished. Again, I think we're looking at long distances between the dwellings. They will have to see it. Some people will see another house in the distance, 400 feet plus, 450 feet, 800 feet away. Just judging from those kind of distances and the distances around my property and similar to other houses, I don't think that diminishes property value, but we'll get to that, I guess. Oh, it is. So yeah, it doesn't really diminish a property value having distances in the 400 foot plus to 800 feet plus distance, especially when the landowners stating they're willing to put up some kind of buffer plantings and all to minimize the site views. Anyone else on that?
Well, my thought is, if the house was there prior to Hoyt Farm, would these folks have not pursued and built there? And I don't see that as logical. I mean, yeah, it's going to be, it's different because they're not used to seeing it. I can relate to it. But again, like everybody said, this is the less of a lot of evils that could transpire there. And like Mr. Conley said, he's going to do it the right way. And I think once it's played out, I think they'll be happy with the end result. I just can't imagine them not have purchased their homes if Ethan's was there prior to them. That's just my personal opinion, because it's still quite a bit of land. Like you say, you're talking 12 acres at least 400 foot sight line. So, and that's just all I have to say.
Okay. Number 5, a literal enforcement of the provision of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. I think it does. The unnecessary hardship is it makes it so this land is not buildable in this manner via a driveway easement, and even worse. Well, actually, no, I won't even talk about the even worse. I mean, it means you can't do this kind of project in a 1-lot subdivision. To the abutters, however, it can make it worse because it opens up the possibility of a road being put in with a 3-lot subdivision. And clearly that means closer spacing between the houses, more things in their sight lines. It doesn't seem to be good for anybody. Does anybody have any comments on that? Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay, Dee, would you call the roll?
John Glenn,
Yes.
Jonathan Gifford,
Yes.
Gary Ingham,
Yes.
Peter Bealow,
Yes.
Dan Lloyd.
Yes.
Your vote is 5-0-0.
Okay. Before we start the next hearing on the 26 Harriman Road, I'm going to walk off camera for about 45 seconds to fill a water glass. Okay, Dee, how about starting to get the applicant online and also.
First, we have to introduce Mr. Gifford and bring Ethan back in.
Yes, to bring him in, period. So Mr. Gifford is excused to
Engagement.
And we're bringing Mr. Connolly in as the alternate member for these final cases. Okay, and Dee, start getting people involved in, and I'll be right back.
Dean, could I ask you to please make Chris Sargent a panelist?
There are two connections labeled as Chris Sargent. I was able to make one of them a panelist.
Okay. His audio is off though.
It's not an option. Hopefully that's the right.
Hold on a second.
While they're doing this, I'm going to step away for a minute.
Thank you. He doesn't have audio.
Dee, can you hear me?
I can.
All right, while you're setting this all up, I'm away. I'll be right back.
Yes. Let me type him a message because he's not, doesn't have audio.
Oh, is this Mr. Sargent?
Yes. Chris, if you can hear me, I just sent you a chat message asking if you have audio. All right, I'm going to put my mic on mute, and I have a phone number for him. I'll give him a call. Hold on a second.
Pete, I'm going to take 2 seconds.
Thanks, go.
Chris, can you hear me?
I can.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know, I'm trying.
You need to turn off whatever else is on.
I'm working. It's off.
Do you have a webcam, sir?
I do.
Could you share your webcam, please?
You
should be able to write. There you are.
There we are.
Would you like me to read the legal notice, sir? Mr. Below?
I'm sorry?
Yes,
I'm sorry?
definitely.
Okay. The legal notice for this, there's two involved with this one. Legal notice number 1 is 20-14, a request from Christopher Sargent for a variance from Article 5, Section 220-31IA to permit a structure to be placed within 25 feet of the front property line on Harriman Road, where 35 feet is the minimum. Property is located at 26 Harriman Road, tax map 50, lot 75 in the LDR district. The property owner is Linda Danahy, I hope.
Yes.
20-15, a request from Christopher Sargent for a variance from Article 5, Section 220-32I to permit a structure to be placed within 5 feet of the front property line on Mankill Brook Road, where 35 feet is the minimum. The property is located at 26 Harriman Road, tax map 50, lot 75 in the LDR district. The property owner of record is Linda Danahy. I do have a letter of authorization for the application from Linda Danahy.
Okay, Dee, why don't you bring up a drawing? Or, yeah, bring up the,
pictometry instead?
I'm sorry?
Would you like me to do the pictometry instead?
Sure, that's okay, that's good. So while she's doing that, Mr. Sargent, welcome to our meeting tonight. And thank you for putting up with our, lack of technological savvy.
Hey, you guys had audio before I did.
Yeah, but we started an hour before you did. Okay, so Mr. Sargent, could you, give us an idea of what you're planning on doing? What would you like to do here?
I would like to add a garage to the right of the house there, right between Mankill Brook and Harriman Road. Just kind of clean up my yard. I got a lot of car stuff and gearhead, so I'd like to put all the stuff in the garage and kind of neaten up my yard a little bit. But that's kind of my only spot to put it because the septic system is between where I want to put the house and the garage.
So as I look at your home from Harriman Road,
yep,
is your septic system to the left or to the right of your house?
to the right.
Ugh, okay. Okay. Now I understand. Okay.
Yes, unfortunately, that's the only spot to kind of fit the garage I'd like to put up.
So presently you have a shed, it looks like, along Mankill Brook Road?
Yes, I do.
Okay, would that shed be going?
It would have to fit the garage, yes.
Okay. Okay, now I understand. Just out of curiosity, do you see any traffic down Mankill Brook Road?
Just the people that live down there.
Okay, so people do go down from that way from time to time?
Yes.
I had gone down it, but probably not since the 90s and only in 4-wheel drive.
Yes, it's rough.
Okay.
You're not going down there in a Honda.
No, a 4Runner cuts it though.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know how much you heard of the last case we were on, but at the end of the day, we have to make our decision based on the 5 variance criteria that you filled in some information on.
Yep.
Page 3 of your application. I guess I'd like to ask you to kind of go down them, and we might stop from time to time and ask questions.
Okay.
Okay.
You want me to start right at 1?
Hey, why not?
The proposed variance will not be contrary to the public interest because I would put it's far enough away from the front so it wouldn't obstruct views from people coming off Mankill and going down Mankill. The
Okay.
spirit and intent of the ordinance is preserved because it does not affect the town. There will be substantial justice in granting the variance because the septic system is in the way of the building the garage.
Sure, and it doesn't seem to be any other location suitable for
Unfortunately,
a
there is
garage.
not.
Right.
The values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. There's a new development that will actually add value. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in any unnecessary hardships because would have to backfill the slope in the backyard to relocate the septic system and add room for the garage.
So, okay, then, and I take it this is this septic was in place before you were on the property.
It's original to the house, my friend.
Okay, I understand. So so if I may put it this way, it's not something you did and now it's an oops.
Yes, it was definitely not the right place to put that.
Okay. Board members, do we have any, do you have any questions or comments on this?
Yeah, I got one.
Go ahead, John.
Where's, is the driveway gonna go out onto Harriman or to, Mankill?
It will go on to Harriman.
Okay. And the shed, it looks like the shed is actually beyond the lot line.
That was there when I bought the house, or my mother got the house.
Okay. All right,
Just-
that's it for now.
Just for
Gee,
the
we've
board's
never seen that before, have we, John?
Just for the board's benefit, a pictometry picture can be off by a little bit because of the fact that it's taken by an airplane view.
Yeah. Dee, would you put up the drawing of the property, please?
It's in the middle of the application. Hold on a second. I'm starting to get the hang of it.
Good. Okay, there we go. So between this projected or this proposed garage and that, you had it right the first time. Okay, so the septic is between the proposed garage and the house.
Yes.
Yeah, otherwise it'd be, yeah, far less intrusive to push that garage up to the house.
Right, yep.
Okay,
Hey, it's Jim Unger. I just have a quick question.
sure.
Just looking at your plan here, obviously it's kind of just a thumbnail. How do you plan on laying, when you're trying to get so close to a right of way? I assume you're gonna have the land surveyed so that you know the garage is really gonna be 5 feet from the
Yes,
actual.
sir.
right of way?
Yes, it will.
Okay,
All right. Just to answer Mr. Unger's question, he would be required to do that to get the building permit certification and close out the building permit because of the variance being involved.
Okay.
Ethan, we're seeing you, Ethan, we're not hearing you.
He's muted.
I unmuted him.
There
There we go.
you go. Now you unmuted me. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. I just had a question for Chris too. Is the side road there, how many homes are actually access that road? It's not is 2, 3?
Two houses, yes.
Okay, so it's not like a main road and it's almost like it looks like a public way that was maybe never actually paved and carried through the other development.
It's
Yes.
a dirt road.
Okay.
I have a question for Chris also. I'm just curious, I'm looking at the overview from the sky. Why, is there a reason why the garage can't go out beyond the swimming pool? It appears to be a swimming pool.
It's a
Yeah.
slope. It goes
Slope,
straight
okay.
down. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And Gary, from my many years ago, driving down that road once or twice just to say I could do it. I think, as I recall, fairly considerable slope.
Yes, it is.
Okay, makes sense. I have nothing else, Farm.
Okay. I guess I don't have any other questions as well.
I got a question. We know that Mankill right there is not developed. And, but would that garage being that close hinder any future development of that road?
I don't
John,
believe so.
John, the town doesn't even maintain that road.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, Mankill from Harriman there, that road goes past two of my neighbors and then goes to the side of my house.
Yeah.
And this building there is impossible. We actually maintain that roadway.
Okay, so we don't think that the town would ever.
No, we've gone back and forth as far as maintaining it, and my neighbor basically plows it, fills it in when the holes get real bad. So we basically take care of that.
Okay, just to make it passable, right?
Yep, exactly right.
I would caution the board that because Mankill Brook is indeed a town-owned road, never say never that it wouldn't get paved, or that people who are property owners along Mankill Brook would not want to develop their property.
Well,
There may
I'll tell you,
be-
I've been there for 18 years and they haven't even talked about it.
Again, we don't want to ever say never.
Just like with the last application, with a landlocked bed. Okay, but I'd also like to point out that there are houses in this town on paved roads that are within 5 feet of the road. And I use case in point would be 3 Witch Lane, which is the first house we own, right in back of Helen Hart's old house, if that means anything to some old timers. The front of the front porch is easily less than 5 feet from Witch Lane, which is it's in the MDR zone. It's got, I don't know, 20, 25 houses down it, right?
Hey, Chris, how close is it gonna be to Harriman Road?
It's going to be 25 feet.
25 feet from Harriman, so it'll be 25-foot driveway. Okay, that's all for me.
Do you know roughly now how far from Harriman is the front of your house?
I do not know that.
Is it more than or less than 25 feet?
It's got to be more than, it's going to be further back than the garage would be, so it's got to be more.
Okay. But still, even 25 feet back, somebody can come up Mankill Brook Road and see around that garage to see traffic coming up Harriman.
Yes.
It's not like it's like 5 feet from Harriman Road.
Nope.
Okay.
And believe it or not, Pete, if you look at Mankill, if you go to the corner point of the blue line,
yeah,
Mankill actually continues. It kind of, if you're coming from the north, going towards Harriman, the road actually curves a little bit more and comes out to Harriman. You know what I mean? It jettisons further out.
Yep.
Past his house.
Okay. Okay, so let's get, if we don't have any more questions or comments on the board, let's get to the public and see if they have it, if there's anybody who wants to comment in favor of this proposal or just ask a general question about it.
I do not see any hands raised, nor do I see any questions.
Okay, do we have anybody speaking against this?
Again, I do not see any hands raised or any questions.
Okay, that's all we can do. Any other comments from the board before I close this hearing? Or from the owner?
Nope.
Chris, anything else to put in?
No, sir.
Please, my dad was sir, I'm not. Okay, with that, I'm going to close this hearing. And this hearing is for both of the variances. I think we should look at each variance individually though, in our deliberations.
Just to let you know, I have now muted Mr. Sargent, so there'll be no additional input.
Okay, and thank you for your input, Mr. Sargent. It's good meeting you. Would somebody make a motion on the Harriman Road frontage?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I need you to read the motion that's in the draft motion in the staff report, please.
Gary, do you have it?
I have it.
Would you?
I move to grant the application for variance from Article V 220-321A to allow a structure to be built within 25 feet of the front property line with Harriman Road. The property is located at 26 Harriman Road, tax map 50, lot 75.
We have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay.
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
I did.
Thank you.
Okay, any comments or to make before we go through the variance criteria? I guess not. Okay, so the proposed variance will not be contrary to the public interest. So, I think public interest is to clean up lots a bit and keep gearhead stuff out of front yards. Although I've had my issues with that in my backyard. I think 25 feet's not a bad distance from Harriman Road. I mean, clearly it's not the 35 feet that zoning requires, but I don't think it will adversely affect the people driving up and down that street. The spirit and intent of the ordinance preserved. Well, I think the spirit and intent is it's being put as far back as possible. It's not being proposed to be put right up against the street. Anyhow, that's my thoughts on that. Anybody else? All right, substantial justice in granting the variance. Definitely that septic system is in the way. I think we all know putting in a new septic system is a $15,000 to $20,000 event. Assuming it could even be done in order to put that garage back a little bit into a better location. I don't think there's that much gain to the general public in denying it compared to the costs of if we voted against. Ethan, do you have a comment?
No, I mean, it's a tough shaped lot. I think he's doing a great job laying out a garage, and there's no, if you look at how his lot lays out, there's really no abutters. I mean, his neighbor to the right is pretty far away, but there's a road in between the two, and like I said, I think he did a good job of working with what he has.
Okay. Literal enforcement of the provision of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. Definitely this is kind of with the land. These are both old.
I think we missed property values.
Oh, yeah, the values of surrounding properties won't be diminished. Right. I think that this new garage, kind of cleaning up the front of the property and if anything, will help the neighbors' property values. Literal enforcement of the provision would result in unnecessary hardship. The only other choice really is trying to move the septic all the way in back of that pool. And if that's possible, and then rebuilding there, and this is the hardship is in the way this house was originally constructed and the septic was originally constructed, or if it predates Man-Kill Brook Road, where exactly they put Man-Kill Brook Road. Either way, it's literally enforcing the provisions will cause a hardship, I believe. Does anybody else have any comments?
No.
Okay. D, we're ready for a vote.
Ethan Conley,
Aye.
Peter Bealow,
Yes?
Dan Lloyd,
Yes.
John Blinn,
Yes.
Gary Ingham.
Yes.
Your vote is 5-0-0.
Okay, let's go on to the second motion. And just for sake of brevity, I'll read it. I'll make the motion. I move to grant the application for a variance from Article 5, 220-321, open paren, capital A, close paren, to allow a structure to be built within 5 feet of the front property line with Mankill Brook Road. The property is located at 26 Harriman Road, tax map 50, lot 75. You have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. So this is similar to the first one, but it's a lot closer to that road. Granted, it is also a side road with very few users. It's never even been paved. And yes, that doesn't mean it never will be. I understand that. I'm dealing with present circumstances.
I think if it was paved though, I don't see why it would hinder paving that or using it, or, I mean, 5 feet is 5 feet, whether it's paved or not, but.
This is true. And I've seen, houses in this town right up against 5 feet from some of the side roads as well, paved roads. I guess let's go down the criteria again. The proposed variance isn't contrary to the public interest. Again, I think it's in the public interest to clean up that property, and this goes a long way towards doing that. Spirit and intent of the ordinance is preserved. I know that's a little tricky to me. Does anybody have any comments on that?
No.
The only way I could say it's preserved actually is with respect also to the last variance request here. This is awfully close to that road, but that said, it's also 25 feet back from Harriman. So people coming up to the top of Mankill Brook will be able to look beyond the frontage and be able to see oncoming traffic. That was really the only thing that kind of worries me is traffic. And given that it's reasonably far back from Harriman, I'm less concerned.
I mean, I think the spirit and intent of having a setback is pretty much for safety, and I don't know what the vehicle count is on that side road, but like you said, it can't be very much, so.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, there's only 2 homes.
Right. There's substantial justice in granting the variance. Well, again, if we don't grant it, the only way for this gentleman to really get a garage put up is if, he invests an awful lot of money in trying to move a septic, assuming you can move it. Whereas I don't see that the general public really loses anything on this. You'll note that the residents on Mankill Brook who were notified of this didn't even send in any, questions or comments on it, so they don't seem terribly concerned. Values of surrounding properties won't be diminished. Again, I think helping this gentleman to make this property more attractive, kind of more visually, aesthetically pleasing, adds value, doesn't detract. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. Definitely. This is in the land, it's in the property as he bought it, where in particular where that septic is placed and where the house sits on the property. It would be a hardship to have to try to overcome that, in my view. Anybody else have any comments or questions on this, or issues, or thoughts?
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay, ready to vote? Yep. Dee, please call the roll.
Peter Bealow,
Yes.
Dan Lloyd,
Yes.
John Blinn,
Yes.
Gary Ingham,
Yes.
Ethan Conley.
Yes.
Your vote is 5-0-0.
Okay. Well, good luck and enjoy the building process, Mr. Sargent.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I appreciate it, guys.
And I should have mentioned this. Hold on. I should have mentioned this earlier. I apologize. And the same was true to Mr. Connolly and his variance application earlier. So, well, you know the result of this, but people have up to 30 days. What's it, D?
Yes.
30 days to ask us to reconsider this. Okay, so you won't be able to get a building permit until that period is up. The only reasons that they could ask us to reconsider this if we miss some part of the law, or we misapplied, or they have new information that might change the ruling. But there is a little delay still before you can build.
Okay.
You're all
Okay.
set. We can let you go.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care now. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, so while you guys are setting up for the next set of variances with folks, I'm going to go run again and fill my glass. I'm getting a little parched tonight, speaking too much.
Dean, could I ask you to make Michael Malinowski a panelist?
Webcam closed by organizer. He closed me.
Setting that up now?
I don't know if I'm supposed to watch the rest of it.
No, you don't have to watch the rest of it.
Chris, your mic is still on, Chris.
How you guys do? My eyes are blurry.
I don't.
I'm fucking going whack.
Chris, your mic is still on. I just muted him. Dean, are you there?
I'm here. I'm promoting, it's Michael Malinowski, correct?
Yes, thank you.
He is now a panelist.
Thank you.
ID, could we also have Ari Pollock and Max Hayu Ionic have
Ari
accessibility as well? Ari Pollock?
Do you have a webcam, Mr. Malinowski?
I do have a webcam, Ms. Voss.
Could you turn it on for us, my friend?
I can.
Okay, we got Ari Pollock needs to be a panelist, Dean. And what was the other name? I'm sorry.
Max.
Max Pianic?
Yes.
Sorry if I messed that up, Max. So we'll give Dean a second to do that.
Okay. Max will be right back. He just stepped away for one moment.
I'm actually, I'm back.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. We won't be able to see them on webcam. You'll be the only one on the webcam.
Oh, thanks.
And Ari Pollock is counsel for the applicant?
Yes.
Yes, can you hear me, Dee?
Yes. What is the name of your firm, please?
Gallagher, Callahan, and Gartrell in Concord, New Hampshire.
Gallagher, Callahan?
Yep,
And what was the last name?
Gartrell, Gartrell.
Thank you, sir. And Max, your affiliation?
I'm the founder of Convenient MD.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And
Do I understand I am spared the webcam?
you are spared the webcam. That is true. Mr. Belo,
Yes.
how would you like me to approach the reading of these ordinance of the requests? I was going to suggest that we read the 3 setback ones at the same time and then move along to the sign ones.
Actually, I'm thinking we should hear the 3 setbacks and then go into deliberation and decide the 3 setbacks.
That's what I meant, yes.
Then go into signs.
Yeah, but I meant read them all at the same time.
Yes.
I'm gonna work on the, I'm pretty sure the narrative said that the was relatively similar on each one. Does the applicant have any objection to that?
That's fine. I think this is Ari Pollock speaking. I think it was our intention to recognize Max to do a little company intro and recognize Michael to just go over the technical items of each request. And so it might make sense to read them all.
I'm just talking about reading the legal notice at this time.
Well, right. So my suggestion was it might make sense to read all the legal notices and then we can just do the presentations as a whole. We understand you'll deliberate separately on each of the items.
I believe that this is because your sign ordinance ones are dependent upon the setbacks because of the way we calculate our signage. So there may be some question once the setback ones are deliberated before you move on to the signage ones that may need to be addressed.
I understand. That's fine. I don't know that it matters.
At the end of the day, we're going to get through all of them.
Amen.
Request number 20-06, a request from Mammoth Acquisition Company LLC for a variance from Article 9, Section 220-59A2 to permit it. Oh, I'm reading them wrong. Hold on.
You want to read the back of the sheet, I think.
Okay, here I go. Sorry. Number 20-10. A request from Mammoth Acquisition LLC for a variance from Article 5, Section 220-32IA to permit a structure to be built within 10 feet of the front property line with Plaistow Road, where 50 feet is the minimum. The property is located at 2 Main Street, tax map 24, lot 43 in the Commercial 1 District. The property owner of record is AC Plaistow LLC, Dick Anagnost, manager. I do have letters of authorization for representation from both Mammoth Acquisition and from Mr. Anagnost. Number 20-11, a request from Mammoth Acquisition LLC for the variance from Article 5, Section 220-32IA to permit a structure to be placed within 16.7 feet of the front property line on Hazeltine Street, where 50 feet is the minimum. Property is located at 2 Main Street, tax map 24, lot 43 in the C1 district. The property owner of record is AC Plaistow LLC, Dick Anagnost, manager. And case number 20-12, a request from Mammoth Acquisition LLC for a variance from Article 5, Section 220-32IA to permit a structure to be placed within 47.7 feet of the front property line on Main Street, where 50 feet is the minimum. Property is located at 2 Main Street, tax map 24, lot 43 in the Commercial 1 District. The property owner of record is AC Plaistow LLC, Dick Anagnost, manager.
Okay. Thank you for that, T.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is Ari Pollock of Gallagher, Callahan, and Gartrell. I'm here for your applicant this evening, which is Mammoth Acquisition Company, LLC. We as a team certainly appreciate that this format is unique and requires patience, and we do appreciate you making the opportunity available to us as we all learn how to interact on this format. Mammoth has the property under purchase agreement with AC Plaistow LLC, the landowner, and as Dee mentioned, we've supplied documentation of the owner's permission to pursue the pending applications. With me this evening on the call or web Zoom is Michael Kaufman, Jonathan Kaufman, and Ben Hartley from Mammoth Development. And Mammoth in turn has entered into an agreement with Convenient MD to improve the site with an urgent care facility in the event that zoning, planning, and other approvals can be obtained. And so with us this evening from Convenient MD, we have Max Puyanik, who is the founder of Convenient MD, and Dave Sanderson and Kevin Correa as well. And lastly, in all of his webcam splendor, we have Mike Malinowski of Allen & Major, who is the applicant's civil engineer for this project and these applications. As you've shown on the agenda, we have filed 7 applications for 7 items of zoning relief. And if you have had a chance to examine those requests, you'll see that they essentially fit into 3 types or groups of relief. 4 of the requests are about signage, and the remaining 3 are about setbacks, which I understand are the ones that have been read into the record for presentation right now. And frankly, each of those 3 setback variances are asking for the same relief in 3 different locations on the plan. The lot is pre-existing, the lot is non-conforming, and it's an odd triangular shape surrounded by streets on all 3 sides. The request is to observe a lesser setback from the roads on each of those sides. And frankly, it's to take what is the largest setback applicable for buildings in Plaistow of 50 feet, which would apply from all 3 of those sections of frontage down to 10 feet, 16 feet, and 47 feet in the respective 3 directions or 3 sections of frontage. The existing building that's on the lot is about 11.5 feet from Hazelton Street to the north of the site. And so in terms of the existing condition, that too is non-conforming by a similar degree. And so other than the variances that we've requested tonight, and please recall that we have some signage variances that have not been read in yet, other than the grouping of applications before you this evening, the property can be developed as the proposed medical office in conformity with the ordinance. These are the only pieces of zoning relief we believe we need. And so before we get into the specifics of each request and we turn to the elements of the test for zoning relief, I hope that I could turn the presentation over to Max, again, the founder of Convenient MD, to provide a brief introduction to his company, the model and healthcare mission, and how these urgent care centers function in host communities. And then after Max, I was going to turn it over to Michael to review the technical detail of each of the requested variances using the variance plan that he has submitted. And then I'll walk you through each of the elements of the variance applications, at least with respect to setbacks, and then hopefully we'll get to signage as well. So if it pleases the board, I'd like to ask that Max be activated so he can present.
Dee, please make it so.
Thanks so much. If I could ask, I think we had sent a quick, maybe just 4 slides that I was going to walk through very quickly on Convenient MD. Is it possible to bring those up so you could see them as I'm just kind of giving you a quick overview?
Which ones are you looking for? I have the site plan up right now.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm
No,
looking.
there was a separate, we didn't share that one, Dee. That's something I can share my screen.
Actually, you can't, you don't have permissions to.
Ah, okay.
No problem.
Is that something you can email quickly to Dee?
I can.
It's not that easy, Peter. It's easier if we have Dean make him a presenter for just a quick minute.
Okay. Oh, okay, that's cool.
It's a matter of
the issue of not being able to make him into an attendee again.
Thank you so much for your patience with us.
And I think this is
Dean,
the
I'm
only
sorry.
item you don't have. So this should only be once.
I'm sorry, Dee, what'd you say?
Dean? Instead of Max being the presenter, I need Mr. Malinowski to be the presenter. I'm sorry, Max, I'm gonna mess up your last name every time, so I apologize.
Max is great. My wife, I've been married for 12 years, and my wife was just complaining about our last name last night, so no problem. Max will work.
You have no idea how hard I practiced Malinowski.
That's because you didn't grow up with a whole bunch of Eastern Europeans like I did.
Right. You have screen sharing privileges.
Thank you.
Great. I'll do this really quickly. Anyway, thanks so much for your time this evening. We're really excited about the opportunity to serve your community. Quick overview on Convenient MD. We started in 2012, actually in Windham, New Hampshire, so not far. We see a lot of folks from Plaistow. We are unique in the world of urgent care in a couple of ways. First of all, in the quality and scope of care that we provide. So Convenient MD, a traditional urgent care center treats about 20 to 30% of patients that walk into an emergency department. Convenient MD is unique in that we're staffed just like an emergency department. We have emergency room physicians, emergency room nurse practitioners, or emergency room nurses. So the same staff that you'd have in an emergency department, but in an urgent care center. And we also have more tools available than the urgent care centers. So we have things like moderately complex lab, CBCs. We can do more diagnostic testing. We have long-term stay rooms. We have multiple procedure rooms. So that allows us to treat about 70% of patients that walk into an emergency department, rather than other urgent care centers that would treat 20 to 30% of patients that walk into an emergency department. So a much broader scope of care, which again is really critical to us in our model of urgent care. Another key element, obviously, we're open 8 to 8 every day, and we work very hard on being affordable. If you just go to the next slide real quick, Michael. Just from a cost perspective, actually, the most recent data that we just received from Anthem Blue Cross, the largest insurance company in New Hampshire, is that when they take all of our visits and they say, okay, if we saw these same visits in the emergency department, they would pay between $1,800 and $2,000 for those visits. And at Convenient MD, we're getting paid about $200 for those visits on average. So we're, patients, again, $200 versus $1,800 to $2,000 per visit. And in New Hampshire, we have very high deductibles, among the highest in the country. Typically between $3,000 and $5,000 is average for people that work at good companies with good healthcare benefits. So when a patient goes into the emergency room for the types of visits that we can see there, most of the time they're going to pay that full $2,000 out of their pocket until they hit their deductible, and then they're usually looking at about a $300 copay even after they hit their deductible. So it makes a big difference for patients and for the communities we serve for patients to utilize us for the majority of the time that they would have otherwise gone to the emergency department. Again, that's unique in terms of the scope and the cost difference to patients. And again, in New Hampshire, just given the big cost of care difference. If you go to the next slide real quickly. We are incredibly focused on serving our communities. We do a ton. Our mission is to revolutionize the patient experience, and part of our culture is also giving back to the community. So our team members are very involved in community events. When we enter a community, we're going to be involved in all types of activities. But some of the standard things we do are, we're going to support local charities. We're going to provide a lot of free care. So all the school nurses in your community will be able to send kids over to us, regardless as to whether or not they have insurance, for free care anytime when there's a cost issue. We provide free vaccines. We provide a lot of free services to the school nurses, because the school nurses are the most under-resourced people in the medical community. So we work really closely with them. Anybody can come in for a free flu shot, regardless as to whether or not they have insurance. That's always the case. We provide thousands of free flu shots at all of our facilities every year. And so that's just, kind of just a really important in terms of our philanthropic commitments to the communities we serve. On the next slide, in terms of our facilities, so we tend to draw from a very wide area. Typically, we expect more than half of the patients that would visit this facility to drive more than 20 minutes. And so that is very different than a Walgreens or a grocery store, other types of folks. They're traveling much farther. And the reason they're traveling farther to us is because we offer a unique scope of care. So a broader scope of care. And we work really closely with insurance companies, employers, to help educate people about that. So if you have Anthem Blue Cross insurance and you call their nurse line and you say, I've got a nail through my hand, they're going to tell you your nearest Convenient MD is here. And so they're specifically directing people to us. And then also with large employers that have high deductible plans, those they're trying to help educate their employees about how to use their benefits better and how to stay out of the emergency department. And so it's because when we reduce those ER visits, it helps the employer provide basically better benefits to their employees, and keep deductibles down, et cetera. And so as a result, employers also educate their employees, hey, when you have higher acuity, urgent medical needs that are not immediately life-threatening, this is the place we recommend you go. And often they pay 100% of the cost for their employees. So that drives people a lot farther. So, you know, people are sick, they're injured, they've got a nail through their hand and they're driving themselves, or they might just have a sick child in the back seat that's got an earache, which can also be stressful. But often the majority of those people, even if they live, you know, if the majority of those people do not live nearby, haven't seen our facility before, and they're driving to us under distress and they're looking for us. They've got us in their GPS and they're looking for us. And so being really prominent and visible is critical for us. This is something we've learned over time. In Windham, New Hampshire, which is our first facility close to you, we have patients that drive by that facility all the time and have to go do illegal U-turns to get back to us. And so we've learned over in trauma how important it is to locate in a spot that's easy to get into and visible, but also again, people can see us. So that's a little bit of our background. We are open. We accept patients between 8 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock at night. Our team member arrives around 7:30, and we might be there as late as 10 o'clock, because if someone comes in and needs to be in one of our long-term stay rooms on an IV, they'll be there for a couple of hours. So that's kind of us in a nutshell. We have a very specific footprint. So we have 12 exam rooms, we have long-term stay rooms, we have procedure rooms. The way that the physical plant is laid out is very intentional. This facility will be laid out internally very, very similar to our very first facility in Windham. We have 24 facilities today. Our smallest facility is a little over 5,000 square feet. So this is what we're proposing on this site is the smallest building we can fit in our standard prototype on the property. One other thing I just want to mention really quickly is just, you know, these are obviously unique times in COVID, and I just wanted to mention that we're really proud of our commitment to serve our communities at this time. We, you know, from the very beginning of COVID, we worked hard to make sure that when patients had COVID, we were treating them in their cars to avoid getting them in the facility. Certainly, we've had a lot of our team members get sick through this current epidemic, but trying hard to, you know, treat patients in the car to avoid exposing other patients. We have provided virtual urgent care services. We are the state partner for DHHS in testing all long-term care facilities in the state. We've tested thousands of our residents in New Hampshire that work in long-term care facilities, and identified about 100 employees that were asymptomatic for COVID, and prevented them from continuing to work in long-term care facilities and unintentionally infecting residents at risk. We put up 100 tents as soon as COVID hit, so that patients could get tested for COVID via drive-through tents. And again, avoiding having to go in a facility where other people would get infected. So we're really proud of that as well, and look forward, we hope to have the opportunity to have a really positive impact on your community. Any questions I can answer for you?
None at this time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael, could I ask you to just summarize the dimensional relief we're looking for and the 3 applications that have been read in?
Yes, I can do that. We can.
I can't screen share while you have the privileges, so if you have it up on yours, you can put it up.
I can do that.
There it is.
Look at that.
Perfect.
There it went.
Do you see it now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So the dimensional relief that we are looking for, as Ari had pointed out, our site is unique. We are a triangle-shaped lot with Plaistow Road here, We have Hazeltine on this side to the north. We have Main Street here. We also have a small portion of property that falls within Massachusetts. So we do have a state line that sort of runs through this area. That being said, since we have frontage on 3 streets, we are held to maintaining a front setback, which is 50 feet. So as you can see, we have this little triangle spot of area that would be allowed for a building placement. As you can see by the current building is existing non-conforming. So it also does not meet the setbacks. As already had pointed out, at least on Hazeltine Street, we are increasing the setback to Hazeltine Street from what's currently there now. So the current setback to Hazeltine is 11.5 feet. We are increasing that to at least 16.7. Along Main Street, we have an existing of 38.1, and we are increasing that to 47. Although we're asking for relief, we are increasing the setback. The area that we are closest is along Main Street or Plaistow Road. It is a wide road, so being closer to that street doesn't pose any safety impacts or visibility. This is a long sight line. There's a signalized intersection that is in Massachusetts. There's a signalized intersection at Hazeltine, and then there's another one at the Plaistow Plaza entrance. It's a very long, wide open area. So the positioning of the building will not pose any sort of sightline issues to the property. As you can see, we are maintaining the entrance on Main Street. We're actually sort of narrowing it down. The existing driveway was excessively wide, sort of the Wild West out there, where you didn't have a sort of defined flow. Where we're channelizing the flow, making an easier entrance into the property. The existing driveway out to Hazeltine is in this location. As you can see, it's impacted by the new building. We are proposing to reposition the new driveway farther away from the intersection, which will actually provide better maneuverability. Turning into Hazeltine, you won't get people that will turn abruptly into the new facility. They'll have longer space to travel. It also provides a bit more queuing for the signal here of people trying to get out. So you're not getting people that are gonna try to cut across and block that traffic. That sort of gets into the dimensional relief. As Ari had pointed out previous, we do have sufficient parking, so we're not asking for any variances on that. Similarly, the lot coverage, we are slightly above the existing, but still below what is required for the property. I will
Thanks,
open
Michael.
up to any questions. Turn it over to Ari.
At least a couple.
Yes,
So
sir.
looking, I guess near where Hazeltine hits Main Street, there's something there listed as a transform pad. Is that a transformer pad?
Where, right
That-
here?
No,
Oh.
to the left, all the way.
Yes.
Yes, right there. What is that?
Yes. It'll be a proposed transformer. So it'll be just a pad mounted sort of like switch gear, which you normally see at a commercial facility.
How large?
It's probably not going to be more than about 34, 36 inches tall. It's typical for those types of things.
And how far is that from Hazeltine? That seems to me to be the closest thing to Hazeltine.
The transformer pad?
Yeah,
It's an it's not connected to the building.
it's a structure on the property that's new.
It's an electrical transformer.
I understand that. So how close is it to Hazeltine?
Well, the buffer is 10 feet, so it's a little more than 10 feet away from the property line along Hazeltine.
Okay, so maybe you should be asking for a 10 feet variance off of Hazeltine.
Well, it's a concrete pad, sir. Typically, transformers and such aren't purview to building setbacks. It's not a building structure.
Is there something on the pad?
Right, so rather than have this debate now, maybe we could just recognize that if we need relief for that, we need to return or put it someplace else.
Or it can be relocated elsewhere on the property.
All right.
You're correct. It is three-dimensional and it is on the surface of the ground. And if it's within the definition of structure, we would need relief for it, and we have not asked for that this evening.
Okay, fair enough. We can carry on.
Thank you. So just summing up where we are and also covering the 5 points of statute relative to variances. You know, the critical factor here is that this small pre-existing non-conforming lot is uniquely shaped and configured. It's the lot has no shared boundary with any other private abutter or property. And in essence, it's best described as an island within a sea of roads. The three setbacks converge at the center of the lot and yield a very small building envelope. And if you were to try to conform fully with all of the setbacks and build only in the center of that resulting triangle, you'd end up with a building envelope that's about 1,800 to 1,900 square feet, as Michael had calculated it for us. A developer would then need to surround the building with parking and drive aisles and entrances and landscaping on all of the sides, frankly, to support what would become a centrally located building. And there aren't many, if any, frankly, of the permitted uses that are allowed in this commercial district that could function on an 1,800 square foot plate. Convenient MD, as you heard from Max, would require at least a 5,000 square foot plus plate for each of its current locations, and this is the same. We did submit for your consideration a prototypical floor plan for tonight's meeting. I don't know who has control or if they can bring that up, but essentially what it shows is the combination of visitor lobby area, restroom facilities, triage and exam rooms, x-ray room, procedure rooms, administrative record keeping space, all the things you'd expect to see in these facilities. And I can assure you there's no wasted space. There's no way to reduce this footprint and still have their program work. It's tested in their many locations, and it's still twice the size of the area that would be available if you were to try to conform completely. There, it's up there now. I'm sorry, it's a little behind the narrative. So the proposed placement shows the building position closest to Route 125, and that layout allows us to first and foremost avoid curb cuts on Route 125 where the traffic is moving most swiftly, and also place the curb cuts in part where they exist now on Hazeltine and Main Street, and then to have the parking area all to one side and servicing the building from that east side of the lot. The proposed layout also avoids interruptions or improvements over the state border, which of course would add an entirely additional layer of complication. And again, it's a unique factor applicable to this lot. As if three stretches of road frontage weren't enough, you have two states to factor in. Lastly, the existing building that's on the site now, it's about 2,500 square feet. It's a two-story building. It's about 11 feet off of the north boundary line and well within the setback that applies there. It's really too small. It's much too small to be functionally reused by Convenient MD, that's for certain. And it's, I would argue, functionally too small to be reused by the vast majority of the permitted uses in the district. In terms of the 5 legal criteria applicable to variances, the proposed setbacks, and again, I'm talking about the 3 of them in whole, but each is a different dimension. It's not contrary to the public interest because the lot is pre-existing. It's already non-conforming relative to the existing structure, and the proposed professional office use, in this case medical, is permitted by right in the commercial district, commercial 1 district. The spirit and intent of the ordinance are served because, frankly, setbacks are intended to separate and distance users. The uses and structures have breathing room between them. And in this case, that's essentially accomplished by the unique shape of the lot, and that what we've got are public rights of way that separate the use, the user, the structure from any private properties across the street that
I'm sorry,
surround
could
this
I ask
lot.
you to slow down just a hair for me?
Of course, my apologies.
That would be great. Thank you.
The next item is there is substantial justice in granting the variance. Even with the setback variances that we're proposing, the lot can safely support vehicular access, on-site parking, utilities, and landscaping. And again, maybe with the exception of that transformer, which we'll need to discuss with staff, we don't think we'll be back before the ZBA for the site. The values of surrounding properties will not be diminished, frankly, because the use is permitted by right in the district, and the improvements will actually be moving farther away from the closest residential abutter on Hazelton Street, and the overall site can be designed, illuminated, landscaped, all in conformity with the site regulations or minor variations of waivers from them. Literal enforcement will result in hardship because this is a very uniquely shaped triangular lot that is pre-existing, couldn't get any larger, and can't really be reasonably redeveloped without zoning relief, given the combined impact of these 3 setbacks from the 3 roadways. They essentially result in an inferior building envelope if applied fully. And so, put differently and put in the context of the somewhat recent case, Brant Development v. Summersworth, what we're asking the board to recognize is what the court held in that case, which is a proper balance between the legitimate aims of municipal zoning and the hardship that may sometimes result from a literal enforcement of the zoning ordinance. So in this case, we're asking for relief from that literal enforcement because it doesn't serve, in our view, the purposes of setbacks. You can have this layout and improvement without sacrificing for the public or for substantial justice. Before I wrap up on this one, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make reference to a few letters of support that were filed relative to the application. A couple of them speak to signage.
Excuse me, but I guess, I mean, you're welcome to go forward with them, but I'm going to, mention that I went through all of those and they have nothing to do with this proposal or any of the variances you're asking for. They're talking about you guys as a business, and that's, God bless you. That's great, but that has nothing to do with these variances.
Yeah, there are a couple of them that do speak to signage, but I'd like to hold off on those until we reach those variances.
Okay.
The one in particular from the Exeter Fire Department speaks specifically about prominent signage.
True that. I read them all.
Thank you for doing that. So that's our presentation on the setbacks, and of course we're assembled for any questions.
Okay. Board, do we have any questions right now?
Did he had said anything about relieving stress on Hazelton with these new curb cuts?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand. I couldn't hear the question.
Andy, come closer to the mic.
My question was, had you stated that this new curb cut on Hazelton would relieve traffic flow?
Michael, you're muted.
Sorry about that. It's not that it will relieve traffic flow, it'll just make the interface between the traffic that's there currently and the proposed driveway. Right now, the existing driveway is very close to that intersection.
I know that area very well. That
Yeah.
driveway's never been used. That business was basically an enigma. No one ever used that to go in and out. They used the other side. So I'd be hard pressed to see how that would help that traffic flow if you've ever been there on a Saturday.
Were
It's
any
definitely
traffic
something that we
studies
can look
done
at
on
and review
Hazelton?
with-
I'm sorry?
It's definitely something that we can review with staff. And we do have the ability for 2 driveways. There's 2 current driveways, so we could always reconfigure if we needed to. And that's something that we can definitely review with staff and the development team about the placement of that. But that's definitely something that can be done during the planning board staff.
Yeah, that road is extremely narrow. And you got a right travel lane, you got a straight, and then you got traffic coming across at the same time.
That's
And
correct.
Like I say, that curb cut there isn't going to alleviate or help any sort of a traffic pattern whatsoever.
We may certainly get into that discussion if and when we reach the planning board on a site design layout discussion. For now, we're not asking for any relief for access, and we're just showing you how we think the building would lay out if we received setback relief.
Okay, fair enough. John, Ethan, Gary?
Yeah, I got a question. Is this a 2-story building?
There is a second story above the entry area that will be used for some administrative and storage space, but the patient areas are all on the ground level.
What part of the building is going to be the upper story? The one closer to Hazeltine?
Oh, the opposite, the southern end.
Okay.
So if you see this line here, so about where my corner is right here.
Yeah.
To here, this corner to here, there's a little administrative space that's up in sort of the elevated portion. When we get to the sign plans, you'll actually see the front facades of those elevations. And they'll just
Okay.
sort of point that out, but this is the general area that second story is.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
And did you guys also say that the hours were till 8 at night, but on occasion, if there was situations, you could go till 10:30 in the evening?
Yes, I think what Max explained was that the hours of operation end at 8, but obviously if there's a patient that comes in before 8 that is still in the midst of treatment, it will be as long as the procedure requires.
We accept patients, they walk in the door until 8 o'clock, so we'll treat them. It could be an hour or 2.
Dan,
No,
that's
I
something, that's something for the planning board to work with these folks on, should they get to that point. We really have nothing to do with the hours.
Fair enough.
Okay. Nothing else, guys?
Quick question, Peter, if I may.
Of course.
Jim Unger. Mr. Malinowski, being the engineer, I travel Hazeltine Street towards 125 several times a day for 25 or more years. And one of the things I always try to do, because stoplights on 125 are a relative term, oftentimes the 18-wheelers that are doubling the speed limit don't always see them. Looks like there's not a whole lot of reaction time if I'm coming out of Hazeltine onto 125 for me to see who's not slowing down and for them to see me. What kind of sight distances do we have here at that intersection?
Which on Hazeltine?
Hazeltine to 125 to Plaistow Road. It looks like I'm seeing nothing but building until I'm at a critical zone that I might not stop if the guy coming the other way isn't.
Well, that's a signalized intersection.
Well, it is, but like I said, I've watched more than one 18-wheeler run right through that. Very common problem on Route 125 because there's so much going on there. And so I'm just thinking, I don't even know if you're conforming to federal standards on sight distance there with that 10-foot.
That's an excellent point. It's similar to the prior gentleman's point about Hazeltine being congested, but not use of the existing entrance much. I guess my observation would be that the curb cut that's there today is closer to the intersection, and I appreciate it may not get much use, but it is approved. It could be redeveloped as part of a reuse of the lot as it sits. And so our proposal is to move it, I don't know, Michael, a good 50 plus feet away from the existing curb cut, which would at least provide some enhanced reaction time. I understand your point.
I'm not talking about the entrance. I can agree with Dan that the entrance would be minimal use. I'm talking about Hazeltine having a lot of traffic pulling out onto Plaistow Road and
That's
having
Route 125.
Route 125, Plaistow Road, and having time to see what's approaching you because it looks like there's a big building in my way with that 10-foot setback.
Yeah, understood. We would certainly need to discuss that with the planning board in terms of a traffic safety and potential study.
Well, if the setback is the issue on the site distance, is that a planning board issue or a ZBA issue?
Well, we think we can accommodate the site distance with the straight shot that Route 25 is now, and I think you heard from Michael that it's a wide right-of-way that does allow for excellent site distance. Whether someone's barreling through there and ignoring the traffic signal, I grant you is something to be concerned with. But it's certainly our position that the engineering supports the building being that close and we're not sacrificing safety.
All set.
Okay. Thanks for the input, Jim. I think at this point, I'm going to open it up to people speaking in favor of these applications. Dee, would you see if anybody out there is putting a question in or has their hand raised?
Do not see any hand raising or any questions.
Okay. In that case, is there anybody out there speaking against these proposals?
Oh, yep. Again, I see no hand raised or questions.
Okay. Any more questions from the board before I call these three hearings to conclusion? Close them? No. So here, not hearing any, I'm going to call these three hearings closed, and we'll go into deliberative session on these three hearings. When we come out, you'll hear our decisions, and we'll go forward into the signage. Okay, at this point, please turn off the microphones for all of our guests.
I have done so. Could I ask for a 30-second break?
You got it. Take 40.
Thank you. Gratitude and apologies.
Not a problem. Okay.
I am so sorry. I do have an opposition. Seeing how everybody should still be here because it's still pending applications. I do have a letter of opposition, an email that was sent to the board.
Okay, look, I want to officially then reopen this hearing so we can hear the letter in opposition.
Yes.
Okay.
So I will unmute them again. My apologies. I forgot it was buried from all the paper moving around here. So I have a letter. This is from Lisa Lambert of 5 Tracy Lane. Dear members of the Plaistow Zoning Board of Adjustment, my name is Lisa Lambert. I live at 5 Tracy Lane in Plaistow. I'm writing to express my disinterest and concern regarding the multiple variance requests from Mammoth Acquisition Company LLC located at 2 Main Street, tax map 24, lot 43 in Plaistow, New Hampshire. With regards to the request, it is clear there is an intent to change the structure and business use of the building that is located on the above mentioned parcel of property. This property is a high traffic area with significant congestion at all times of the day and week. And if proposed changes go into effect, the residents of the town will be undeniably inconvenienced evermore. To begin, why does there have to be that many signs on one building? The signs that exist on this property currently are extremely bright, historically offensive, and on all day and night, which are referenced to the sign applications, but I'm just going to continue to read the letter. Second, with regards to 20-10, to permit a structure to be placed within 10 feet of the front property line of Plaistow Road is nonsensical and unreasonable. This intersection cannot handle a building that close to the traffic pattern. The fact that this is even being considered is beyond my comprehension. Third, requesting a variance to permit a structure within 16.7 feet of a residence, which is the application for 2011, is incredibly infringing on the Hazeltine Street property owner being that close. Last, what will the increased congestion do to our police and fire departments? There's no question these departments will need to increase their staffing, equipment, etc., which will ultimately affect taxpayers, residents significantly more than commercial businesses. I've lived in Plaistow for 28 years and travel through this area intersection on an average of 5 days a week to take care of routine and daily living errands, i.e. grocery shopping, dry cleaning, drop off, and pickup. The change in traffic patterns and incredible increases of vehicles, including commercial vehicles and 18-wheelers in this intersection, is a detriment to our town. Furthermore, once the dispensary business across the street opens, traffic congestion will be even more jammed up at any given time. I understand there's going to be an urgent care facility in Plaistow near Cumberland Farms gas station. When that application was presented to the planning board, several questions were asked about what type of business was intended for their proposed building site. There was never any mention of an urgent care business, even though the applicants were specifically asked. In addition, it was also asked multiple times what the planned hours of operation would be, and the statement was made but not recorded on the plan was that Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Standard hours, no weekends. Unfortunately, that is not the case what is happening now, and the residents who live abutting area have to endure the extra hours and days of operation due to Plaistow's preference for commercial businesses over residential wishes. I feel that those residents in that area, because they were clearly deceived, there's nothing they can do about it now. First and foremost, Plaistow is a community where families, friends, and neighbors live and gather. It's disappointing that our little village is getting lost because the town believes in the notion that business enhances our community. Adding or increasing businesses in this part of town is going to cause drivers to seek alternate routes through neighborhoods and residential areas to avoid congested spots. Residents deserve to be able to enjoy their community, not the other way around. There's a reason Plaistow has zoning ordinances, but it seems they are continuously changed or amended to appease commercial requests. It's time town employees, committee members, and volunteers show the community what really that the residents matter. Plaistow's residents should come first, regardless of what anyone says, because at the end of the day, our town is nothing without the good-natured, positive, and friendly attitudes of its people. Respectfully, Lisa Lambert. And my apologies, everybody has their microphones back on again.
Mr. Chairman, if I could please respond on behalf of the applicant.
Please.
You were shaking your head. I thought that might have been a no.
Oh, it's kind of circular.
I don't wish to address the substance. My only comment is that by my calculation, which could certainly be wrong, 5 Tracy Lane is almost a mile from the site, and I question whether this individual has direct injury or standing to be factored in. I don't want to contest the point. I'm just raising it for the consideration of the board and for your record.
That person is still a resident, and that is a highly used intersection by many people in Plaistow. To be perfectly honest, I live from the mortgage specialist building. I'm 2.5 miles, and I'm still going by that building in COVID days, I'm still going by it 3 days a week. So anyhow, but point taken.
Thank you.
Okay. I also want to make that's all I want to say about that. Okay, Dee, are you done now?
Thanks. Let me double check everybody's again, just in case. I feel so bad I almost missed that. I don't want to miss anybody else. I don't see any others, and I know that was the only one I had by email.
Okay, sorry, gents. Now I'm going to close the hearing, and unless a board member has any final say. Okay, I'm closing the hearing. We're going into deliberative session. So we're going to look at all 3 of these, but take them individually. So I'll make the first draft motion, and that will be the setback Route 125, application number 20-10. And the motion will be, or is, I move to grant the application for a variance from Article 5, 220-321 alpha to allow a structure to be built within 10 feet of the front property line along Plaistow Road, Route 125, for the property located at 2 Main Street, tax map 24, lot 43. Okay, any initial comments and thoughts before we go down criteria?
Can I have a second, please? I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry.
Second.
Mr. Lloyd, I need you to sit closer to your mic.
I'll second.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you can sit close to the microphone and speakers, Danny. I brushed my teeth this morning. So okay, nothing before we go down the variance criteria?
No.
Okay, fine. So the proposed variance won't be contrary to the public interest.
I disagree with that. I think it will be.
One at a time.
It's going to be a safety issue with the traffic. The building is too big for the lot that it's going on. It just is. It will be contrary to the public interest if this building is allowed to be built.
Okay, Dan?
I couldn't agree more. Pete, you know that that's such a cluster right now. It's not even, now you're going to just infuse it with even more disparities. It's terrible. I mean, you can't eat, me personally, like I said before, that mortgage company was an enigma. No one went in and out of that place. And if they did, they used the other side. So I don't even bring that building into question. That's a moot point as far as I'm concerned. And moving forward, this would be a new business going into that particular spot, which does not conform in any way, shape, or form. It's like putting a 5-pound sausage in a 3-pound bag. It doesn't work. That's my personal opinion.
I mean, and you can look at the building that's there right now, talk about it being non-conforming and whatnot, but when that building was built, the town was run on horse and buggies in a trolley line, not 10,000 cars a day, with 8,000 of them being on Hazeltine Road. And I know that's probably an exaggeration, because I don't know the exact numbers, but Hazeltine Road is probably the busiest street for being as short as it is in the entire town.
And like I say, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, it's just, it's non-conforming. It's just, I mean, you got a brand new Walgreens right there now. You got people, and people don't conform to the signs. You're not supposed to pull out of that side lot on Hazeltine and take a left, but they do. They cut across traffic. They stop traffic because, you know, people can't get through the lights. I mean, anybody disagree?
No, I agree. I think this would be a very disservice to the residents of Plaistow.
And to get back to the residents of Plaistow, this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is just one more business for people to jump the border. That's just my.
I think that's kind of neither here nor there to the ZBA.
But Pete, what I'm trying to say is, you don't want to all of a sudden you sign off on this, and then we got to deal with the repercussions of the traffic afterwards. It's bottom line, it's still more traffic.
At the end of the
Coming out of Hazeltine, taking a left, I agree with Jim Unger that this building is too close to 125, and we can see now up the street who's coming.
Right.
And we're going to block that, and it's going to make it more dangerous.
Of course it is.
I think it's perfectly reasonable if someone's going to develop this to ask for a variance. The fact that you have your frontage, you're fronting on 3 streets. It's a very difficult parcel. 10 feet, it's tight. I mean, it's a, you know, I've seen their business in Wyndham. It's a nice building, and I'm sure, you know, the planning board will require them to landscape it well and all that. But I think Jim Unger, I believe, said he hit the nail on the head. You don't have a line of sight, you know, if you're pulling out of Hazeltine and you got a tractor trailer, and everybody that lives in this town has pulled out of that street and taken a left, and there's always trucks doing 40, 50 miles an hour down that hill. My bottom line is I'd love to see this business here in Plaistow. I think it'd be a good addition to the community. I think the way it's laid out is truly in my heart a safety issue with people pulling out of the street. So,
and we're not even talking about putting snow on a heavy winter like we had a few winters ago. Where are you going to put the snow in that 10 feet and then try to pull out of Hazeltine Avenue? You won't see anything.
Okay, let's go down the criteria to issue a variance instead of kind of going shotgun here. Okay, I think we adequately addressed the contrary to the public interest due to the safety issues and such. Spirit and intent of the ordinance is preserved. And the applicants say because the setbacks are intended to distance and separate uses and structures. Well, that's part of it, but it's also part of, you know, having adequate distance from the roads and having adequate sight lines and such at congested corners. So I really don't think it's preserved. I agree with you. There's substantial justice and variance. You know, not really, because there's already a long-term business that's there. You know, it's not that the land isn't being used or can't be used. It's just whether or not it can be used for this large application. And I just don't see substantial justice in this. The values of surrounding properties won't be diminished. I can agree with that. Definitely. It's a beautiful building, but still, does it belong on that lot? Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. It is an ugly lot in a lot of ways. I mean, it's a small triangular area you can build within. has frontage on 3 streets, but there's an existing building there that can be utilized for some application. This just may not be the proper application for that lot. And yes, it's a legal use, but that doesn't mean we have to shoehorn it into places that it, is perhaps not optimally sized for, in my view. So I think in this case, there is not an unnecessary hardship. Do you folks have any other comments on these?
Excuse me. My
When you
own one
say
comment.
these,
First I hear nobody, then I hear 3 at once. Come on, guys. Let's keep the one at a time.
All right, Gary.
I was going to say, I have nothing against Convenient MD, but there are better places on 125 with all the empty buildings and empty space we have, that building could go someplace else that is better suited for that business.
I agree.
Yep.
But again, we're looking at these variance requests tonight. Okay, it's not our job to put people in different lots.
I think, again, seeking a variance for setbacks, perfectly reasonable. It's just this one's a bit extreme. I think the other 2 setbacks that they're asking for, right, in my opinion, I don't think they're unreasonable. I think they're fine, but this one truly poses a safety issue. Again, with people taking a left out of Hazeltine. I mean, we have a traffic issue there. Is that Convenient MD's problem? No, it's not their fault. We have a huge traffic problem on 125, but that's just a safety issue with no sight.
It's an existing condition.
Yeah, and I think they could probably lay their building out in a different way on here. And again, they're welcome to seek more variances on the other lot lines, but this just poses a safety problem, in my opinion.
Okay. Are you folks ready to take a vote right now?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, Dee, would you call the roll?
Dan Lloyd,
No.
I need you closer to your microphone.
Nope.
John Glynn,
No.
Gary Ingham,
No.
Ethan Conley,
No.
Peter Bealow.
No.
Your vote is 0-5-0. The motion is defeated.
Okay. So let's go on to the next motion. I'll read that one. I move to grant, the application for a variance from Article 5, 220-321 alpha to allow a structure to be built within 16.7 feet of the front property line along Hazeltine Street for the property located at 2 Main Street, tax map 24, lot 43.
I just want to make note, the font is a poor choice on that one. That is 220-32I, not 1.
Sorry.
Sorry, it's bad font. I'll have to change it up for next time.
And I'm also not wearing my reading glasses. So.
Oh, your 3Ds.
I'm opening up my drawing here. So. Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
So I guess before we get to the 5 criteria, I want to note that while the existing building is 11.5 feet off of Hazeltine, where it is close to Hazeltine is farther back from 125. It's basically along the middle, at the midpoint of Hazeltine Street. Sliding that, shortest point further west towards 125, but making it another 5 feet, giving another 5 feet of setback is, I don't know, I think, again, I think this is problematical as well. But frankly, I'm on the fence on this one. I think the further back from Main Street, the closest point to Hazeltine is, the better off a plan is.
Well, again, like we were talking about before, you're losing your sight going 125 north. You like you said, you're sliding the billboard closer to the corner. Now you're not going to see any better.
The building closer to the corner, yeah.
But I was paraphrasing. I'm just saying it's no different than having a piece of plywood in front of you. You're not going to see it. You know what I mean? As you slide towards 125,
yep,
you're still looking at a wall closer to the corner. Versus, like you said, the existing building where you had more of a sight line.
This variance, I don't have the issue with. It's an issue when it's coupled with the first variance they asked for, the 10-foot setback off of 125. If they were back off 125, I don't see this. In my opinion, I don't think that would be an issue at all. Because if they could open up that site, sight line, but that's not what they're proposing here. So
right, because that's what we're saying. If they had pushed it back to say where they want to put the new curb cuts, then you'd be able to see you'd see past the corner. So I think it's all
like if they turn the building 90 degrees,
yeah,
maybe left that curb cut on Hazeltine kind of where it is, or maybe pull it back a little bit. You'd have like a billboard. The building would be wide facing right out to the corner. I don't think the other two setbacks that they're asking for are unreasonable. It's a tough property, and again, I just have a problem with the curb cuts completely on Hazeltine. Where you put it doesn't matter where you put I just have an issue knowing Hazeltine. I'm over there 4 or 5 times a day, not a week, a day. And I avoid that area completely on a weekend if I can. It's just that's a mess.
And then
Okay.
I'll finish that.
You folks ready to go through the 5 criteria?
Well,
sure.
The 5 criteria have been for all 3 of these variances has been lumped into one section. So we've already gone through the criteria before for the 10-foot. Nothing's going to change because they're all listed under the same, all 3 setbacks are listed under the same criteria.
Our responses, though, might. So I think we need to step through them for each of these 3 variances.
For clarity in the record, you should step through them for each of the applications.
We are. Okay, the proposed variance will not be contrary to the public interest.
I'm going to go with what I said before, because unless they change the plans, they are all interconnected. Because if you do the 16-foot and the 49-foot, you're still going to have the 10. They're all interconnected together. So my response is still the same. It's going to be a safety issue.
Well, you can approve that setback. Because then they still have to be 50 feet back from Route 125. You can give them that setback variance. They're going to be 50 feet back from 125. But
well, if they left the building the way it stands and moved that existing building back 50 feet, they'd be on top of Hazeltine.
Yeah,
they'd have to shift. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they'd have to rework the building here, 100%. Right. Yep.
Right. But we're dealing with these plans tonight.
Yep, agreed.
It almost appears from looking at these plans and what they said, because that whole building could be moved, but then it's partly on Massachusetts. I don't think they want to deal with Massachusetts. They're leaving it all up to New Hampshire.
Maybe, but again, that's not for us to decide.
Is that town-owned land too? That piece in Haverhill?
I don't know.
No, the sign, the existing sign is Haverhill.
Yeah.
That lit sign is Haverhill.
Yeah, but I think the town of Haverhill actually owns it, I think.
No, that is incorrect. It's owned by the same property owner.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mr. Malinowski, if you keep doing that, I'm going to shut your webcam off.
The spirit and intent of the ordinance is preserved. Because setbacks are intended to distance and separate uses and structures. I think in this case, again, the quandary I have is that the existing structure is actually a little bit closer to Hazeltine. But where it's closer to Hazeltine is further up Hazeltine, away from 125.
And again, that building was built back in horse and buggy days. Things have changed. So
Right.
even if it's a little bit further away, it's still not far enough.
True, by a lot. 3, substantial justice. There's substantial justice in granting the variance. I don't think there is substantial justice. This is just, there's a loss to the townspeople in putting it in granting this variance, especially that close to 125, that isn't made up on the imbalance to the applicants should we grant it. The values of surrounding properties won't be diminished. Absolutely. I think it will not be diminished. I think we all agree on that. Okay, literal enforcement of the provision of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. Again, I don't think so. There's already an existing business there, and that may just be the highest use of that property. You know, we're not denying the use of that property. You guys ready to vote?
Yep, sure.
Okay. Dee, would you call the roll?
Hold on a second. John Glenn,
No.
Gary Ingham,
No.
Ethan Conley,
Vote yes on this one.
Peter Bealow,
No.
Dan Lloyd.
Nope.
Your vote is 1-4-0 and the motion is defeated.
Okay. Okay, onward to the third setback. I move to grant the application for a variance from Article 5, 220.32IA. I listened, to allow a structure to be built within 47.7 feet of the front property line along Main Street for the property located at 2 Main Street, tax map 24, lot 43. So of these 3, this is the one I have no concern over, frankly.
No.
If we take a look at that, yes, it's 2.5 feet closer than zoning allows, but it's only a very small corner of the building. And I think I don't see how that affects, any sight lines or any of those issues at all.
Agreed.
And actually, it's an improvement over the existing structure where it's only 38.1.
I have to agree, but taken in totality of everything, it's still not right
But we're looking at these one variance at a time.
individually. Yep, I know.
Yeah, I mean, this one isn't an issue at all. I don't think either the setback on Hazeltine, the 125 is an issue. It's a safety issue, just not. Hopefully there's a way to do it.
Okay, we ready to step through the variance criteria?
Yep.
A proposed variance will not be contrary to the public interest. I think it isn't contrary to the public interest. It's a very minor incursion into the setback that doesn't appear to affect any safety or site-back safety issues or anything like that. And of course, it is a permitted use in the commercial 1 district. The spirit and intent of the ordinance is preserved. I think it is because there are, very, very close to the legal setback line, and in making it that way, in designing it that way, the spirit and intent is maintained. There's substantial justice in granting the variance. I think so. Saying no to this variance request for this minor incursion is really taking away from the applicant unjustly. Values of surrounding properties will not be diminished. I think we're all in agreement on this. There's no diminution, of surrounding property values. Literal enforcement of the provision would result in unnecessary hardship. Again, there's an existing building there and all, but say literal enforcement is an unnecessary hardship because of how close it is to meeting to our
Hold on a
zone.
second, we lost Ethan.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, my computer's battery died, but I'm dialed in here and I can see you guys.
Okay. That's why some of us plugged in, Ethan.
I'll make note of that.
Okay. So where did you drop off?
It was just barely. I
Okay.
think you're good to go.
Okay. Does anybody else want to make any other comments on this?
No.
John?
No.
Lynn? No. Okay, Dee, please call the roll on this.
Gary Ingham,
Yes.
Ethan Conley,
Yes.
Peter Bealow,
Yes.
Dan Lloyd,
Yes.
John Glenn.
I abstain.
Your vote is 4-0-1 and the motion passes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to unmute their microphones again.
Sure.
Mr. Malinowski, you are welcome to turn your webcam on again.
There you are.
If you can behave.
I will behave, Dee. Sorry about that.
Just for the record, you've behaved extraordinarily well. It's members of this board on occasion, but not tonight, that occasionally misbehave.
I'm watching his little facial expressions going on there, so.
Well, to be perfectly honest, that happens in hearings as well, when we're all there in person.
I know. It's my job to slap you on the hand when you do it.
Okay. So,
read off the remaining 4.
I'm sorry, Dee, what'd you say?
Would you like me to read off the remaining 4?
Before we do that, I just want to ask Mr. Malinowski, do you want us to go forward with the remaining 4?
I believe not. I will open it up to Ari Pollock, the attorney, but I think the position is that we may withdraw the rest of the applications for the signage because they were tied to the buildings.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was fighting with the mute button, but I prevailed. Yes, having not received each of the setback variances, it causes us to go back to the drawing board and see where the dust settles. So it would be our preference to withdraw the remaining applications from tonight's agenda without prejudice and possibly return with different applications.
Yeah, absolutely. No prejudice attached to that. We are a non-prejudicial group.
So that's our request then, is to withdraw the remaining 4.
Okay.
And I think that concludes our applications, and we're done for this evening.
Okay, fair enough. Gentlemen, have a good evening. I really hope there is a
Thank you,
way.
everybody.
You folks in town. We'll see. Okay, so that closes that final hearings. Let's get these gentlemen out, and I want to make a couple comments before we close. Nothing else? We have no other business, correct, Dee?
That is correct.
Okay, so, we're out of hearings. And I'd like to make a couple comments with respect to the letter that Lisa Lambert sent in. I guess it pains me a little that she believes that some people.
Peter, are we still on? Are we still in public?
Yes. We're still
Yes,
in
we are.
public.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
She seems to believe that some people should be denied by the code enforcement officer and not have a right to come to the ZBA for relief. Whereas the reality is any landowner in this town has a right to go to the code enforcement officer with any proposal, no matter how outlandish, and once turned down, they have a right to appeal it to the ZBA. This is all state law stuff. So yes, the ZBA has to hear these hearings. We can't say no. It is not in our purview to say no. We're not, Mr. or Mrs. Applicant. We're not going to hear your case, a variance case. Once you've been turned down by the code enforcement. That's the way this has worked in the 15 years I've been here, and for as long as the zoning laws have been in the state of New Hampshire. So, you know, we're all playing our part. I guess the other point I want to make too is there was a comment in there about how it was supposed to, the facility up by near Cumberland Farms for Exeter Medical or whatever they call themselves. The plan was Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Actually, on their drawings, it says 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. So that was an inaccuracy. And it had nothing to do with this case. I just want to point out that it's just not correct. I don't know what was discussed. Actually, I have no interest in what was discussed. At the end of the day, the planning board votes on what's on a plan. And Plaistow is a community of families and friends and all that. We're also a community of laws. And the ZBA has to only take into account the laws of the state of New Hampshire on how to judge cases. And I think we did a pretty darn good job of that tonight. In all 6 variance cases we decided. So just my opinion. Anybody else have anything?
I think we just did a good job in our first webcam meeting. No glitches. So well done.
Darn good point. I want to thank the board for being prepared for this whole event. You guys did an outstanding job. I want to thank, in particular, I got to thank Dee and Dean Zanello for being very prepared. Not only has this gone pretty darn flawlessly, but in addition, Dee and Dean have both put in countless hours over the last 3 weeks preparing for this. We did a test session before you folks even got involved on the board, and then we brought you guys in. We found some issues. Dean went off and tried to get them fixed. Then we brought the whole board in, do a test the other day, and they're putting a lot of time of, frankly, this should be their evening hours into helping us look as good as possible. So I really want to thank Dean and Dee for not just for the effort, but the success. So.
I agree. Peter, this was a great idea.
Whoa.
I tell you, I had my doubts but it went very well.
I did too.
Just so you folks know, do you mind me saying it, John?
No, go right ahead.
So the other day, John called me with a very, very well thought out, very impassioned plea to do a hybrid meeting. Let some people be in town hall and then some people be out here in remote land. And it's a little more complex to run it that way. I think there's more variables and there's just clearly more unknowns. And as chair, while I listened hard to him and I did internalize his thoughts, I said, no, we're going to do it. We're going to either be all in or we're going to be all remote. And I think it worked out okay. So, okay, I'm hoping next time we're all in. I'm hoping this is the only time, but
we may never want to meet again because we can go to the bathroom now. It's a lot easier.
You just realized we do have 3 people still from the as attendees.
I know you got out of my seat.
Okay, and thank you folks out in the ether, out in internet land. Lori Millette, Lisa Lambert, and Michael Kaufman for hanging with us this long. This has been one of the longer ZBA meetings I've attended, and I'm hoping it remains one of the longer ones I've attended. Have a good night, all.
Good night.
Anything fun?
Nope,
Thanks, guys.
Okay, Ethan, thanks. Okay, I'm signing. I adjourn this meeting. I'm signing off.
Good night, Peter.